Part 71. Infinite Script Killing. Author, Guo Shui Gan Xiao. Chapter 729. Cough, cough, cough. Bang. A hand came out from under the broken board, pushed aside the wood and bricks that were pressing on him, and then poked out Su Tong's head. Looking around, I saw that the originally exquisite coffee shop had been transformed into a Syrian war-damaged style. This is a script score of 100,000 yuan. I'm afraid it also includes decoration costs. Su Tong secretly complained. He did not expect that the moment the hammer fell, such a terrifying shockwave would erupt. Fortunately, my physical body is not what it used to be. If it were before I was reborn, I would have been seriously injured at such a close distance. Just as Su Tong was complaining, a hand came out from the grey dust and pulled Su Tong out of the ruins. I didn't expect it to be so powerful. Aimee was a little embarrassed. She was just enjoying the joy of opening the blind box, and completely ignored how terrifying the power of the heaven appraisal hammer with the blessing of 100,000 script points was. Seeing that Su Tong was not injured, Aimee felt relieved. Su Tong patted the dust on his body and looked at Aimee curiously. How strong are you, managers? If that hammer had hit me just now, I would probably be able to take care of my funeral now. Hearing Su Tong's inquiry, Aimee raised her eyebrows slightly, stretched out her slender finger, and pointed at Su Tong's head. Little brother, this is something you can ask about. Then, plus this. Su Tong took out a bottle from his arms. Aimee was stunned when she saw the bottle. There was half a bottle of paper crane in the bottle, which was exactly the paper crane Su Tong gave her every time. Su Tong also didn't expect that these paper cranes would be placed in jars by Aimee. The jars flew out from the explosion just now. When he saw them, he stopped them in his arms. Aimee's face turned red for a moment, as if the secret above had been discovered. She snatched the bottle away and complained, "Thank you for having the thought to protect it." After saying that, he put the bottle away and threw a hot object to Su Tong. "See for yourself." As he spoke, he grabbed Su Tong's collar like a cat and threw him out the door. He didn't forget to say, the decoration fee of 300 script points has been automatically deducted. When Su Tong realized what he was doing, he had already been thrown out of the script studio. When he looked again, he saw that all 300 script points had been deducted. Mom. He stood up and took out the things that Aimee had just thrown to him. He saw that the originally square box was already covered with cracks like lightning strikes. In the middle of the box, it looked like a blazing fireball was burning. It also feels warm when held in the hand. When Su Tong saw this thing thrown into the prop book, his eyelids suddenly jumped wildly. Fantasy Rubik's Cube, only. Holder, please be aware that this is an item that even the gods will be greedy for. Active Skill 1, Strengthening of all things. Burn a lot of script points to strengthen items. The script points for each strengthening will be twice that of the previous level. Cooling time, none. Seeing the entry in the props book, Su Tong's pupils shrank suddenly. The entries given in this prop card are very short. There is even only one active skill, not even a passive skill. But its preciousness has been explained in the entry. Even the gods will be greedy for this treasure, which can strengthen the ability of all things. Su Tong was instantly shocked. It is indeed a treasure that cost 100,000 appraisal fees. Thinking of this, Su Tong quickly glanced left and right in the prop book, and his heart moved when he saw the bottle of 5 spiritual pills for injury reduction. He tried throwing the bottle of pills into the Rubik's Cube to see if it could be strengthened. Ding! Are you willing to spend 50 script points to strengthen this item? After receiving the prompt, Su Tong chose to confirm without hesitation. Suddenly, the Rubik's Cube began to rotate, and the irregular textures on it began to combine randomly. Ding! The item was strengthened successfully. When the Rubik's Cube came to a halt, Su Tong's heartbeat suddenly accelerated when he took another look at the 5 injury-reducing spiritual pills that was back in the prop book. 5 Injury Elixir at 1. The user can quickly recover 40% of physical damage, and recover 15% of damage every 5 minutes for the next 2 hours. Duration, 2 hours. Although it has only been upgraded by 1 level, the recovery damage has been increased from the original 30% to 40%. Even the subsequent continuous recovery effect has been increased from 10% to 15%. Such an effect may not seem like a high improvement, but upon careful calculation, the recovery effect is at least double that of the original elixir. And this is only an improvement of 1 level. Su Tong immediately lost his temper and began to try to improve again. Following the prompt, 150 script points were required this time, and Su Tong chose to upgrade without any hesitation. Just wait until the upgrade is completed and continue the upgrade without looking at the entries. Ding! Upgrade successful. Consumption, 450 script points. Ding! Upgrade successful. Consumption, 1350 script points. Ding! Upgrade successful. Consumption, 4050 script points. After the elixir was upgraded to level 5, Su Tong looked at the entry of 5 spiritual pills for injury reduction, and his heartbeat accelerated uncontrollably. 5 Injury Elixir at 5. The user can quickly recover 75% of their own damage in a very short period of time, and recover 35% of their damage every 2 minutes for the next half hour. Duration, half an hour. The effect of the 5 injury-reducing spirit pill that has been strengthened to level 5 is almost unparalleled. If it continues to be strengthened, can it achieve 100% recovery? In that case, this pill, even if it is a consumable, is enough to move people. However, Su Tong had no idea of strengthening it. The script points spent for each enhancement will be tripled. This means that when 5 Injury Elixir is strengthened to the 5th level, it already requires 4050 script points. To strengthen it again, it will require 12,000 script points. At the same time, there will be a reminder. It seems that after an item reaches level 5, there is a risk of failure to strengthen it. If you add the previously enhanced script points, the cost of this elixir has reached a high of 5,000 points. Although the effect of 5 injury resolving pills is worthy of the price, Su Tong no longer plans to strengthen it. To put it bluntly, this prop, like the small tripod, is a money-burning hole. If you really try your best to strengthen it, I am afraid that your little wealth will be burned to nothing in an instant. This made Su Tong suddenly feel that the scripts were becoming less and less durable, as if no matter how much money he made, he could not withstand the expenses. He took out the Pure Yang sword and tried to put it on. After all, this thing was his main weapon. Perhaps it's because elixirs are consumables and require only 50 script points for the first enhancement, while the Pure Yang sword as a weapon requires 5,000 script points. The gap between them was already difficult for Su Tong to accept. After much thought, Su Tong finally did not choose to upgrade rashly. On the one hand, it is because the preciousness of the Pure Yang sword is that it is incredibly sharp, as well as having sacred damage and restraining dark attribute creatures. It doesn't have any more powerful skills. The only skill that comes with it is limited to determining the world with one sword. However, this skill needs to be coordinated with the right time and place to exert its maximum power, so I rarely encounter suitable opportunities. Moreover, Su Tong made a calculation in his mind. To upgrade the Pure Yang sword to level 5, he would need 150,000 script points, and to upgrade it to level 6, he would need 315,000 script points. Such a huge sum of money may not be available even if you sell yourself. Su Tong raised his head. When he thought that this was a bottomless pit for burning money, his joy immediately cooled down. He walked aimlessly on the street and couldn't help but sigh, hey, after all, Poverty has limited my strength. Ah! Pedestrians passing by heard Su Tong sigh and couldn't help laughing. I heard a young man complaining as he walked, it's as if someone is not the same. Su Tong didn't plan to visit the exhibition anymore and took a ride back to May's house. There was no one around, which was perfect for alchemy. After taking out a piece of yellow incense and lighting it, the soul followed the incense cloud back to the entrance of the hall. After entering the hall, he saw Da Ya still lying on the chair sickly. When he noticed Su Tong's arrival, he wanted to get up, but Su Tong held him down. Don't move, your injury is too serious. Don't do it next time, do not do that. When Su Tong saw Da Ya's bloody tail, his heart ached. Then he took out the alchemy materials from the prop book and came to the immortal furnace. As soon as he got close to the immortal furnace, Su Tong felt the veins on his forehead squirm unconsciously, and his desire for alchemy became stronger and stronger. Immortal furnace. It's actually an immortal furnace. How could you have such a thing? It would be great if it were mine. Danjing's voice became urgent, as if he had seen some peerless beauty. Stop talking nonsense, what's mine is yours, tell me how to make the great Huaidan. Su Tong sat in front of the alchemy furnace and adjusted his mentality. It's very simple. Just follow the order I told you. First put in the 1000-year demon essence. Su Tong followed the elixir's instructions and put the millennium demonic UN into the immortal furnace. A puff of green smoke rolled up from the immortal furnace, swallowing up the 1000-year demonic UN. Then he put his hands on the immortal furnace and activated the Supreme Alchemy Technique. Supreme Alchemy Technique. After activation, you will gain the Supreme Alchemy Technique, which will increase the alchemy efficiency by 300%, increase the probability of forming an elixir by 50%, and have a certain probability of triggering elixir patterns. In order to ensure nothing goes wrong, Su Tong even took out part of the incense merit as fuel and threw it into the fairy furnace this time. Suddenly, colorful flames rose up in the immortal furnace. Under the surge of fire, the 1000-year-old demon essence was refined with almost no resistance. Following that, Su Tong threw the 1000-year-old ginseng into the immortal furnace. Of course, you don't need to put in a whole root, just cut off a small part of the rhizome. Next, water scorpion gallbladder, 8 treasures snow lotus, and loquat ointment were put into the elixir furnace in turn under the reminder of the elixir. The time invested in these herbs is different. Each time a herb is added, the flames in the fairy furnace also change together, gradually producing a subtle fragrance. The way of alchemy is unfathomable. The same kind of medicinal materials are put into the alchemy furnace at different times, and the medicinal effects produced are thousands of miles apart. Just like the dew in autumn and the dew in summer. They are both dew, but there are subtle changes. They are almost different. Will not work. Danjing kept popularizing the secrets of alchemy to Su Tong. Seeing that the pills in the immortal furnace were almost taking shape, there was still one shot of snow pogo grass that was still missing. Click. There was a sudden explosion, and Su Tong's heart sank, and he saw that the pills in the immortal furnace had cracks. Is it going to fail? Just when he was worried that the alchemy was about to fail, he heard the elixirs scream in his mind, hurry, now. The most critical step in the Great Huaidan is now. When Su Tong heard this, he immediately raised his palm and lifted the shuepo grass in his hand. It was also at this moment that a very mysterious feeling emerged in his mind, as if there was a force urging him to subconsciously activate the blessing of the sky. The blessing of heaven. Randomly consume script points. After activation, you will obtain the special state of heaven's blessing. In the state of heaven's blessing, no matter what you do, you will get 300% success probability, 200% super level performance, and 50% heaven's hand. Suddenly, this mysterious and indescribable feeling became stronger, and a layer of golden light appeared on Su Tong's palm. Invisibly, Su Tong seemed to feel an invisible palm. He gently raised his hand and put the snow soul grass into the alchemy furnace. Buzz. In an instant, there was a bright light in front of my eyes. The prompt from the prop book came to Su Tong's ears: you successfully triggered the effect of the Hand of the Sky. This time, 3407 script points will be randomly deducted from you. Following the prompt, a golden light flashed in the alchemy furnace in front of him. Su Tong squinted and peered into the depths of the alchemy furnace. He saw that the pills inside were still cracking, but they were divided into 6. Then each pill developed a unique texture as subtle as a leaf stem. Dan Sheng Dao Mark. The veins on Su Tong's forehead throbbed and he couldn't help but hold his breath. This was a texture that only appeared in top-grade elixirs. This is the second time that I have successfully produced a Taoist elixir after refining it so many times. Ding! There was a light collision sound at the mouth of the warehouse where the elixir was released from the furnace. Su Tong quickly opened the mouth of the warehouse, and a unique fragrance of elixir immediately filled the air. I saw 6 golden pills in the mouth of the warehouse. Each pill was as big as a longan, crystal clear, and actually emitted a pure white pill cream, quickly sealing itself to prevent the medicine from spilling out. Su Tong reached out and picked up one, put it under the bridge of his nose and took a sip. The strong fragrance of red pills penetrated his soul, making him feel refreshed, and his internal organs were squirming under the scent of the medicine. For a moment, Su Tong resisted the urge to swallow the elixir into his mouth, and quickly used another active skill of Tai Shang Danjing, Tai Shang Yang Danjing. Active Skill 3, Tai's Hang Alchemy Sutra. After activation, the elixir can be specially sealed. The longer the elixir is sealed, the stronger the effect of the elixir. Note: be careful, this medicine contains 3 parts of poison, while Angelica sinensis is the most powerful tonic. I saw Su Tong's fingers making strange seals, and the surrounding void seemed to twist with the seals, forming a strange talisman that sealed the 6 pills one by one. Su Tong then carefully took out one of them and put it into the prop book. Zhenyuenda Weiden, 9th grade. There are 9 levels of elixir, and 9 is the ultimate level. After the player consumes this elixir, the overall physique will be enhanced by 30%, the power of the soul will be enhanced by 40%, and there is a certain probability of gaining the ability to release the soul. If non-player creatures consume this elixir, they can quickly gain 700 years of Taoism. If the same type of elixir is taken repeatedly, the effect will be halved, and if taken multiple times, it will be ineffective. Note: ordinary people are not allowed to eat it, as they will be suffocated to death by the huge elixir energy. It's not short, it's not broken yet, it's just that the update was a little late because my schedule was disrupted last night. Originally it was updated during the day, but now it's at night again. Infinite Script Killing. Author: Guo Shui Gan Xiao. Chapter 730. It's done. Su Tong looked at the pills in the props book and felt uncontrollably excited. Unexpectedly, the aid of the elixir was so powerful, and with the blessing of God and the Supreme Alchemy Sutra, he could actually refine a top-level 9th grade elixir. Su Tong immediately took out a hot elixir and fed it to Dia without hesitation. Improving Taoism for 700 years should allow Dia to regain her vitality. Dia was already so weak that she didn't even want to open her eyelids, but when Su Tong brought the elixir to Dia's mouth, the little girl almost swallowed Su Tong's hand. So fragrant. The elixir turns into a medicinal soup in the mouth and slides down the throat. It is not as bitter as expected, but has a bit of grass-like sweetness. As the medicinal soup was completely poured into her stomach, there was a feeling of heat as if she was soaking in a hot spring. Dia couldn't help but arch her body and all the hair on her body stood up. Ah! There was a pleasant moan that made people's scalp numb. A pink light came out from Dia's body, wrapping her tightly into a ball. Improving her Taoism for 700 years was as important to Dia as timely rain. The powerful medicine quickly repaired her broken tail and repaired the wounds on her body. Soon, Daya's tail was cut off and reborn, and she jumped to the level of 7 tails. 7 fluffy tails danced lightly behind Daya, and at the same time, the 8th tail was growing rapidly. Once he breaks through the 8 tails, it means that Daya has truly broken through to the state of enlightenment. This is the talent of elves' cultivation. As long as they have enough Taoism, they can break through without being shackles. Moreover, Daya had already experienced enlightenment once before, in order to stop Zhang Haisheng from cutting off his tail, so it would not be difficult for him to make a breakthrough again. This is like a young man who has never been to a hair salon. When he enters a hair salon for the first time, he will feel restless, his heartbeat will speed up, and he may even be in a trance. But once I taste the gentle care of the young lady, the psychological burden will be the same the next time I come back. Of course, this is also because Daya had already undergone qualitative transformation long ago under the constant nourishment of Su Tong's incense and merit. Now that she has gained another 700 years of Taoism, it is natural for her to achieve a breakthrough. In the blink of an eye, the 8th tail gradually began to take shape. Daya jumped up and transformed into a girl, with big watery eyes and exquisite facial features, like an exquisite porcelain doll. She was dressed in a white snowsuit, with black and soft hair, big eyes, full of aura, very beautiful and cute. "Thank you, Master, for helping me." Daya knelt down and worshipped in front of Su Tong, unable to describe the excitement in her heart. She inherited a legacy from the 5 Immortals Hall, and there is a record in it that it takes great wisdom and courage to become a Taoist by cutting off one's tail and then establishing one after another. Daya didn't think much about it at that time, because if Su Tong died, the entrance to the hall would also collapse, and the spiritual objects entrusted in the entrance to the hall would also be extinct. Therefore, whether it is public or private, Daya can only give it a try. Unexpectedly, this actually fulfilled herself and allowed her to successfully break through the shackles. Now she is completely reborn and has truly attained enlightenment. Don't worry, Headmaster, when I meet Zhang Haisheng again in the future, this cultivation practice of the slave family is exactly what I want to do to him. Seek justice. Daya is very confident at this time. 700 years of Taoism are enough for her to perform many secret skills of the Fox Immortal. When Su Tong heard this, he couldn't help but feel warm in his heart. He reached out and pinched Daya's beautiful little face. "No. I have my own way to deal with him." After saying that, Su Tong did not forget about getting rich and lucky. "Call the 2 guys over and take out 2 big huaidan and give them to them." As for when they would eat it, Su Tong didn't care. Anyway, the elixir was sealed by him using the supreme pill nourishing technique. The longer the sealing time was, the stronger the effect would be. There are 3 left, 1 for myself, Gaozhou, and Gu Zibai, which is just right. There are no extra ones, so it can only be said that the person asking for medicine in the drugstore is not very lucky. If there is an extra one, Su Tong might consider it and put it out for auction or exchange it for dynamic prop cards. After all, he still lacks script credits. Whether it's Dream Rubik's Cube or 9 Immortals Cauldron or even Vault of Heaven's Blessing, they are all very expensive. Hey, it would be great if I could print the script. Su Tong raised his head and sighed. He didn't expect that after becoming a certified player, he would be so nervous about the script points in his hands. This is what Su Tong can say. Ordinary certified players, with tens of thousands of script points in their hands, would probably laugh so hard that they couldn't spend as much money as he did. As for the prop cards he mentioned, if you take out any one and place it at the exhibition, it will probably cause a storm and make many people go crazy. Especially the Fantasy Rubik's Cube, this prop card is simply astonishingly powerful. If Su Tong releases the wind, even those sleeping old monsters may be awakened. Su Tong was also aware of the horror of the Fantasy Rubik's Cube and knew that it was a crime to possess a jade, So he did not intend to put this prop card into the team warehouse, nor did he intend to inform Gao Zhou and Gu Zibai. It's not that I don't trust them, but because the fewer people who know about this kind of thing, the safer it is. As for Mei, Su Tong is not worried anymore. If this young lady wanted to harm him, he would have died in the script world long ago. Throwing the remaining 2 pills into the team warehouse, Su Tong signaled them both to take 1 pill each through the team channel. When to take them depends on their own needs. And he took out the last pill and held it in his hand. Looking at the flawless white pills on his fingertips, Su Tong's eyes were deep and he didn't know what he was thinking. Da Yat and the others did not dare to disturb him. I saw Su Tong's eyes flash suddenly, and a weird smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. They say life is like a play, and if it is like a play, then why not take a gamble on him? After saying that, Su Tong took out the fantasy Rubik's Cube and threw the elixir into the Rubik's Cube without hesitation. Strengthen. Brother Su, Brother Su. As soon as it dawned, Mei Du couldn't wait to run to the courtyard where Su Tong lived. Su Tong was sitting in the room enjoying the breakfast delivered by the Mei family's butler. A very Chengdu-specific breakfast style. Fat rice rolls, pot cakes, fried dough sticks, steamed buns, soy milk, noodles. Afraid that Su Tong would not be full, he served double portions of everything. Su Tong was enjoying his meal when he looked up and saw Mei Du running in. As soon as he entered the door, he sat on a chair and casually picked up a pot helmet and stuffed it into his mouth. In the end, Su Tong was 1 step ahead of him, snatched the pot helmet away and put it in his mouth. I'm not full yet. If you want to eat, let the butler do it. The corner of Mei Du's mouth twitched, and he could only pick up a bowl of soy milk and take a few sips. He looked up and saw Gao Zhou, so he asked, "Where's brother Gao? He went to dance salsa last night, and he's lying on who knows whose bed now." Su Tong also talked nonsense and found an excuse to excuse himself. As soon as Mei Du heard that he was going to dance the Sha dance, he didn't want to ask any more questions. He drank 2 sips of soy milk before continuing. By the way, something big happened in Qingcheng Mountain. Taoist Dong Xian passed the Tianqi cave to Zhang Haisheng. Zhang Haisheng is now the headmaster of Tianqi Cave. Master Genren and the Taoist Association have already issued an ultimatum and given him a Taoist name, called Genren Guanwei. This incident has a great impact. On the one hand, Tianqi Cave's status in the world is not much inferior to that of Longhu Mountain. On the other hand, Zhang Haisheng, who inherited the position of Taoist Master Dongxian, is destined to be connected to the entire Qingcheng Mountain. Moreover, the wealth of the Mei family is almost overwhelming for Su Tong. Zhang Haisheng inherited the huge Qingcheng Mountain. You can imagine how much resources this guy will eat up. However, Su Tong just nodded to this, said "oh," and continued to nibble on the beef pot helmet in his hand, as if this matter to him was not as good as the pot helmet in his hand. Mei Du was also watching his words, and when he saw Su Tong's calm expression, he knew that his worries were in vain. Su Tong just ate the food on the table. After finishing the food like a whirlwind, he smashed it into his mouth. "I will eat twice as much tomorrow. This is not enough for me to stuff my teeth." After saying that, he stood up and walked to the yard. Mei Du followed up and took a look, and saw that the yard was covered with printed ghost notes. Mei Du casually picked up one and held it up to the sun to take a look. He saw the golden money shining brightly, reflecting a sense of heaviness in the sunlight. So he groped around in his arms for a while and took out a small box, which contained a small denomination note that had been improved and printed by the Mei family. After comparing them together, the difference is immediately obvious. Their Mingbao is a new product that has been continuously improved, but even though the technology has improved, it always feels pitifully thin. With the same thickness of paper, the money printed by Su Tong using a money die not only has a better color and clear texture, but also has a solid feeling that makes people feel at ease. This feeling can be understood as the gap between digital currency and cash. Even if it is the same 1000 yuan, it will only look shy if it is placed in the balance, but if it is placed in the wallet, it will make people feel inexplicably at ease. In fact, the reason is very simple. The Mei family has too little virtue. Su Tong only realized this when he actually started printing ghost money. Every piece of ghost money needs the infusion of tens of thousands of incense merits to become spiritual, otherwise the printed money will be just garbage and waste paper. This evaluation standard was not set by Su Tong himself, but the evaluation given by the prop booklet. Since the Mei family stopped cultivating and withdrew from Qingcheng Mountain, even though they are still running their own business, they have given up the idea of treating others as if they were oneself. Nowadays, the Mei family's industries are all-encompassing, but without exception, they are all aimed at making profits. Therefore, the Mei family had been unable to print large denomination notes for a long time, so they could only continue to improve and create the small denomination notes that Meidu held. I believe that Mr. Mei knows the cause of the problem very well, which is why he is willing to give the seal to Su Tong. Meidu was idle, and happened to be helping Su Tong with printing. He couldn't do the key steps, but he could help out. The two of them worked from morning until noon, when they finally called it a day and stopped painting. It's not because the two of them are tired, but because the incense merits on their hands are almost exhausted. However, Su Tong estimated that such a thick stack of money would be enough. It's a pity that the last script can only be retained for 3 months. If it can be retained for a year, maybe all the merits accumulated by the master will be printed into ghost notes, and the 7th master and 8th master may be able to dance in front of him. No problem. Hey, thinking about it this way, he couldn't help but have a little expectation in his heart. At the end of this chapter, it's me Edu. I typed it wrong. Sorry, it's been revised. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Infinite Script Killing. Author, Guo Shui Gan Xiao. Chapter 731. After lunch, Su Tong, accompanied by Meidu, went to the Meijia Sutra Collection building. I was in such a hurry last time that I didn't have time to read many classics. As soon as he left the house, he was called back. It turned out that it was Taoist Lingxiu from Longhu Mountain who were here. Su Tong had a good impression of these 3 Taoist masters, not only because they had instant noodles together on Qingcheng Mountain, but also because the 3 of them had spoken uprightly in Miai's Huang. So when he saw the 3 veterans coming, Su Tong immediately went up to them and said, "Juniors pay their respects to the 3 seniors. Infinite Heavenly Lord." The 3 old Taoists bowed to Su Tong in unison. Being treated like this showed that the 3 of them regarded Su Tong as their equal. This was a treatment that Meidu's father and uncles did not receive. As the saying goes, the road has no end, and those who achieve it come first. Fellow Taoists Su, there is no need to be so polite to us. Taoist Lingxiu smiled kindly, and he felt envious in his heart. The last time he ate instant noodles, Su Tong was still a great master. Now, in just a few days, he has reached the peak of Taoism. Although he is suspected of stealing tricks, others can't steal them even if they want to. There is no way. Why are the 3 Taoist masters free to come here today? Shouldn't they be hosting Luo Tianda dipping in Qingcheng Mountain? Meidu personally brought the tea to the 3 old Taoists and asked in a low voice. Today Qingcheng Mountain is holding a throne passing ceremony. The 3 of us were bored and simply went down the mountain to walk around. Taoist Lingxiu said with a smile. Su Tong and Meidu were startled when they heard this. Good guy, Zhang Haisheng took office as the master of Qingcheng Mountain today. In such a grand ceremony as the passing ceremony, these 3 Taoist Optimus Primes were absent. Isn't this a clear disgrace to Qingcheng Mountain? Seemingly seeing the surprise in Su Tong's heart, Taoist Lingxiu said straight to the point, I don't agree with Zhang Haisheng. It's not that I think he is not good enough, but that he carries too much weight and is bound to refute the Tao. It's not us want to see. That night at Miai's Huang, the three of them all saw clearly that this was not what they expected to see, so they did not approve of Zhang Haisheng in their hearts. That's why he was absent from Zhang Haishan's takeover ceremony. On the one hand, the three of them came here to visit the old man of the Mei family, and on the other hand, they also wanted to confirm with Su Tong whether they really wanted to participate in Luo Tianda dipping. Have you ever read Journey to the West, fellow Daoist Su? Suddenly Taoist Yunjing from Baiyun Mountain spoke and asked a very strange question. Journey to the West. This strange question almost made Su Tong's brain spin. I don't know why I asked this question suddenly. I've seen it, who hasn't seen it? Before Su Tong could answer, Mei Du spoke at the side. Haha, actually, although the mythical stories are made up, some of the things in them are still there. Not understanding what Taoist Yunjing meant, Su Tong rolled his eyes. Are you talking about Chen Xianzang? No, I'm talking about causing havoc in heaven. Taoist Yunjing said seriously. Hearing this, Su Tong looked at Taoist Yunjing up and down, silent for a moment. My former friend in the hospital also said the same. Oh, your friend is not simple. Taoist Yunjing still didn't understand the identity of the friend Su Tong mentioned, but he thought he was an expert hermit that Su Tong knew. Taoist Lingxiu on the side noticed something in Su Tong's words, and hurriedly explained, actually, there is indeed a heavenly palace, but it is not monkey that disturbs the heavenly palace, but the Yuan Shen rushing into the heavenly gate to win the opportunity for himself. Master Huigo also said, Luo Tian Dazan, the gods in the sky will send blessings, but the real treasure requires the power of the soul to break into the Tianmen to seize it. Invading the heavenly palace. This was the first time Su Tong had heard of it. He thought Lushan Dazan was similar to Kasidagarbha Dharma Assembly. Unexpectedly, it sounds like that is not the case now. In fact, whether it is Lushan Dajhen, the Buddhist Kasidagarbha Dharma Assembly, or even the Ghost Temple Assembly in Chijuliu, to put it bluntly, they are the product of a series. It is all about borrowing the power of everyone to open the door to yin and yang, heaven and earth. It's just that the Ghost Temple Fair is about seeking a virtuous person, and the Kasidagarbha Dharma Fair can be understood as a transaction. But Luo Tianda dipping is a test. In ancient times, there was a great battle in Lushan, which cost countless money and food, just to open the gate of heaven, and the soul could escape into it to find opportunities. Nowadays, Lushan Dazan is more like a ritual, which is time-consuming and laborious. The most important thing is that it is difficult for anyone to escape from the soul and break into the Tianmen. Therefore, a Dharma conference of this scale will generally not be held. Until the appearance of Zhang Haisheng, Taoist Dongxian saw hope, which is why Taoist Dongxian insisted on starting Luo Tian Dazan. If Luo Tianda succeeds and Zhang Haisheng Yuan Shen escapes into Tianmen, he will definitely become the first person to break into Tianmen in the past 100 years. At that time, he will have a great opportunity. That's why Zhang Haisheng wanted to kill me, because I can also leave my body and enter the heavenly palace with him to seize the opportunity. Su Tong's brows moved slightly. Taoist Lingxiu and the other three people did not respond to these words, but it was obvious that this was a lice on the bald man's head. We are here today because we want to ask fellow Daoist Su something. Taoist Lingxiu stopped beating around the bush and spoke frankly about his purpose. If fellow Taoist Su can break into Tianmen, can you help us get a Tianxing grass for us? Of course we won't let fellow Daoist Su work in vain. This is a map of the sky. It records the treasures of the 28-day path. With this map, you can rush into the Tianmen and go to the third day, Yugzu Terrace. With the mark on this map, then you can enter Yugzu Terrace. As for whether you can find the opportunity to become enlightened after entering, it all depends on the opportunity of fellow Daoist Su. Longhu Mountain has a long history, and I don't know how much it contains. This sky map is one of them. It is a drawing drawn by the immortals of Longhu Mountain after they escaped into the Tianmen. And Yugzu Terrace is a wonderful and strange place. It is said that there is a mirror inside, which can reflect the true heart and help people break through their shackles. But how can ordinary people enter that place? They must have the seal of Longhu Mountain. Su Tong took the sheepskin map sent by Taoist Lingxiu and took a closer look. It was full of dense scriptures and it was impossible to see where the map was. However, Taoist Lingxiu promised that this picture is mysterious and will only be revealed when Su Tong breaks into Tianmen. In this case, I would like to thank the 3 Taoist priests. As for Tianxing grass, I have not seen this thing before. I can't guarantee whether I can get it. Don't seek perfection, just do your best. Master Huigo waved the fly whisk and said with a smile. He didn't dare to hope for anything in the first place, so he didn't dare to have high hopes in his heart. Seeing that the matter had been settled, the 3 of them stood up and prepared to leave. Wait a minute. Su Tong suddenly remembered something at this moment and hurriedly stopped the 3 veterans. Facing the puzzled looks of the 3 people, Su Tong grinned and stepped forward. It's rare for you 3 to come here. I have a difficult problem here. Can you 3 help me solve my doubts? Oh, there is also something embarrassing about fellow Daoist Su. After hearing what Su Tong said, Taoist Lingxiu immediately became interested. I saw Su Tong waving his hand to summon the fat man, pointing at the honest paper man. You see, the problem is with this little fat man. In fact, I have thought about upgrading Big Fat more than once. The master once reminded himself that Big Fat soul is only attached to the paper man and is truly enlightened. In the final analysis, it is no different from an ordinary paper man. If I had to say the difference, it would be the difference between an ordinary rag doll and a rag doll with a speaker. Just now they wanted to go to the Mei family's library, but it was Su Tong who wanted to find out if there was any way to completely revive the Big Fat man and truly become a living creature. But now that these 3 Taoist priests are here, why should I abandon the near and seek the far away? Other than that, when it comes to research on talisman techniques, these 3 are actually among the best in the contemporary era. Sure enough, Taoist Lingxiu circled around Big Fatty and quickly pointed out the key to the problem. It may be difficult to say it, or it may be easy to say it. It all depends on whether fellow Daoist Su is willing to do it. Taoist Lingxiu pinched his beard and gave Su Tong 2 ideas. One was to go to mission. Borrowing the mission sect's 5-way soul-suppressing flag, he set up a yin-yang inversion formation and used the power of heaven and earth to complete the spiritual awakening for Big Fatty. This method is very troublesome. Although Taoist Lingxiu can open a letter of introduction to Su Tong and help him lend him the mission sect's 5-direction soul-suppressing flag, the yin-yang reversal formation requires the right time and place. The second idea is very simple: to forcefully activate the spirit, and use your own soul to help it complete the spiritual awakening. This is what Taoists call the method of the second soul. Taoist Lingxiu was afraid that Su Tong would not understand, so he secretly told him a set of formulas for refining the second soul. This method is the simplest and most practical. Once completed, Big Fatty can turn into a part of Su Tong, equivalent to the second soul. Unless Su Tong controls it with his own consciousness, he usually has self-awareness. This method is simple and crude, but there is one thing. Once this is done, Su Tong's power of soul will be greatly reduced. Without 10 days and a half, it will not be easy to recover. Putting this day aside, there is only 1 week left, and the Luo Tian Da dipping ceremony is almost officially completed. If Su Tong wanted to choose this option, he would have to wait until Luo Tian's big dip was over before considering whether this method was the most appropriate. Thank you to the 3 seniors for your guidance. I already know it well. Su Tong did not explain his choice. He just thanked the 3 people and then sent them away with Meidu. Meidu. Ah. I need a safe place to retreat. Su Tong looked at the leaving figures of the three veterans and had already made up his mind. Ken. Meidu's heart skipped a beat, and he knew what Su Tong was going to do. Just when he was about to dissuade him, he heard Su Tong say, "Don't worry, I can recover from the loss of my soul much faster than ordinary people. Don't forget, if I can cultivate to the second level, Yuan Shen, maybe you can still help me when Luo Tianda takes a big dip." Hearing what Su Tong said, Meidu thought about it and stopped trying to persuade him. "Brother Su, you just have to know the place. There is a villa behind the crematorium where no one goes. There is also a basement, which is enough for you. Walk." Without further ado, Su Tong asked Meidu to drive without any further delay, and then went straight to the crematorium. This time, he wanted to make the big fat man truly come to life. Infinite Script Killing. Author, Guo Shui Gan Xiao. Chapter 732. Behind the crematorium, there is indeed such a separate small villa. The three-story small foreign-style building, with its red exterior walls and white stained glass, looks very fashionable, but when passers-by see this building, needless to say, they all stay away. Why? First, the location is not good. Behind the crematorium, according to Feng Shui, this location is the back door of the crematorium. Such a building is a place for temporary guests of the crematorium to rest. Second, this building looks fake at first glance. What is a fake look? Have you seen the small Western-style building that was burned when visiting the grave? The shape of this building is painted in the same color as the paper-burning building. It has edges and corners, a triangular roof, and round pillars. At first glance, it looks like an enlarged version. Anyone who looks at it will panic. It has been standing behind the crematorium for many years. It is overgrown with weeds and no one has ever gone in. It's very lively here today. Su Tong opened the door and swept the dust in front of him. He looked around and saw that it was not bad. Although the building looked a little dirty, the quality of the building was good and the windows had glass. There is no water or electricity, but this is not a problem for Su Tong. He has dark vision, regardless of whether he has electricity or not. When he came, he bought all the food and drink supplies in the supermarket in the town. "Brother Su, this place is very secluded. If you are in seclusion here, no one dares to disturb you." Su Tong rolled his eyes and thought, "Isn't this nonsense? Who would be doing this when they are full? Then if Brother Gao comes back, It's okay. You don't have to worry about Gao Zhou. I'll just send him a message later. If you don't have anything to do, just go back. Then, okay." In fact, Meidu originally wanted to stay here to help as a protector or something like that, but then he thought about it and was afraid that he would disturb Su Tong, so he nodded and said he would come see Su Tong tomorrow. After Meidu left, Su Tong opened the basement door, and a damp air suddenly hit his face. The dark basement exuded a fishy smell of earth, which made Su Tong frown. But in a place like this, no one is around, and no one will care if there is a commotion. Otherwise, although the environment at Rumei's house is very good, there are too many people and it would be troublesome if someone who shouldn't see anything sees it. Walking into the basement, he looked around and made sure there was nothing wrong. After Su Tong called out the big fat guy, he patted the guy's round belly. "If I succeed today, I should be able to have hot pot tonight." Thinking of this, Su Tong took a deep breath, took out the incense burner from the props book, lit the yellow incense, and used the yellow incense cloud to let his soul out of the body. According to the method Taoist Ling Xiu told him, it is actually not difficult to cultivate the second soul. You only need to separate part of your soul, turn it into a wisp of soul fire, sacrifice it to Big Fatty, and completely integrate it with his soul to succeed. In theory, this method is very simple, but few people have succeeded since ancient times. The reason why the second soul is difficult is that it is difficult to find spiritual equipment. Rumor has it that there was a Taoist in Longhu Mountain who accidentally got a tiger skin and found that the tiger's soul was still trapped in the skin. So he used this method to turn it into a second spirit, and he called himself Taoist Tiger from then on. Big Fat's current situation is the same as that of the tiger skin. Su Tong only needs to separate part of his soul and slowly refine it with the fire of the soul. However, Su Tong didn't want to simply make Big Fat become his vassal, so before turning Big Fat into the second soul, Su Tong planned to perform some minor surgeries on Big Fat. I saw Su Tong's soul flashing, and he patted the fat man's head gently with his palm. "Be good, trust me, I am a professional in surgery." Puff. Blood spattered on the wall, and with the sound of churning flesh and blood, a pair of bloody palms reached out the window. After the neon lights outside and the darkness inside caused a misalignment of light, a stern face was reflected on the glass. It was Su Tong's good brother Chang Wuju. "Let me go, I was wrong, I'll give you everything you want." Half of the man's body on the ground had been torn to pieces, and his flesh and blood were stained on the walls, the sofa, and even the TV. Chang Wuhen knelt down and stroked the man's face. Feeling the prickly beard on the man's lips, he couldn't help but close his eyes. "Look at my face clearly. Remember, my name is Chang Wuhen." As he spoke, Chang Wu's hand suddenly twisted on the man's head. Kaka kaka. Suddenly the man's head rotated 180 degrees on his neck. The man's pupils gradually dilated and he stopped breathing completely. After getting rid of this man, Chang Wuhen casually grabbed the prop booklet on the other man's body. After a quick glance, he couldn't help but sarcastically said, "It's all garbage." With that said, she chose to inherit all the man's share of the script. After taking a look at his property book, which already reached a 6-digit script score, Chang Wuxiu suddenly felt a strong sense of satisfaction in his heart. Ding ding. At this time, the phone in Chang Wuxiu's pocket rang. After picking up the phone, he heard a woman's voice coming from inside. "Oh, my king, the speed with which you completed the certification makes me unable to help but clench my legs every time I think of you." The woman's voice is very charming, the kind of temptation that a mature woman has. But Chang Wuji just responded coldly, "I only care about when my commission will arrive. If it goes out again this time, next time we meet, I will not be able to help but pluck your skin and make it into a lantern." "Damn it, you are such a cold-blooded guy. This commission has been paid to you and will arrive in about 5 minutes. Also, the leader asked me to ask you, are you really not planning to join the group? At present, the gold level team is only less than 7 teams. I miss this opportunity. Next time you want to." Before the woman could finish speaking, Chang Wuhen had already hung up the phone. Just as he was about to leave the crime scene, the call came back. Seeing that it was still a woman's number, Chang pressed the answer button with an expressionless face. Soon I heard a woman's roar from the other end of the phone, "You bastard, don't always hang up on me. I haven't finished speaking yet, there is another task here, the reward is very high, and there will be more. There are some fun things, are you interested in participating?" After the woman finished speaking, Chang Wenzen's phone vibrated a few times, and then she saw a message from a software called Shark App. After Chang Wuhen clicked on the information sheet, what he saw was a face he was very familiar with. "This mission is very challenging, and it seems that you can participate in a very ancient ritual and obtain ancient strange props. If you are interested, you can consider it, but you'd better disguise yourself. This mission requires you to be in. You must not do anything in the way of the soul in front of everyone." I took it. After saying that, without waiting for the woman to respond, he hung up the phone. Chang Wuhen raised his head with unconcealable excitement on his face. "This is a good mission." After saying that, he turned around and turned on the stereo on the side. Regardless of whether it would disturb the sleeping neighbors, he turned the sound up to the maximum. Then he stood in the living room and danced while holding the bloody body on the ground. The elegant dance poses and the blood create a strong visual impact. Chang Hua-hen was dancing as happily as a child who couldn't wait to share his happiness. He said to himself, "Great, I already miss him. You tell me, wait until he falls into my hands this time when I go to bed, can I also perform a small operation on him? Yes, a very small one." The more he talked, the more excited he became. Suddenly he hugged the body and rushed to the window. Boom! With the sound of shattering glass, two figures quickly fell from the 36-story building, but strangely, when the black shadow fell to the ground, there was only a body that was smashed to pieces. On the other side, Su Tong's soul sat cross-legged on top of his physical body. At this moment, his soul bloomed with soft light, and the hot pure yang energy emanated from his soul. If Taoist Lingxiu and the others saw this scene, they might be so surprised that their jaws would drop. Pure Yang Yuan Shen. If people from the Quanzhen religion saw this, they would probably go crazy. Throughout the entire history of the Quanzhen religion, there were very few people who could cultivate the pure Yang soul. Once one cultivates the pure Yang spirit, it means that the physical body has also been transformed into a pure Yang body. At this moment, in front of Su Tong was a huge fireball, which illuminated the entire basement. Through the white firelight, you can see that Big Fat's body is constantly shrinking, but from time to time there will be traces of lightning flashing on its body. If you look closely at the source of the lightning, it turns out to be those densely packed strange symbols on Big Fat's body. Pattern. These talismans are exactly the same as the talismans imprinted on Su Tong's Xian Yuan shield. It turns out that when Su Tong was refining his soul, he used the power of formlessness to transform himself into a pure Yang physique. He plans to use the power of the pure Yang spirit to turn Big Fat, the second spirit, into a pure Yang body. This not only enhances Big Fat's strength, but also can exert greater power when combined with the Heavenly Thunder talisman imprinted on Big Fat's body. In fact, he originally planned to imprint the Black Ice talisman on Big Fat's body, but found that it would cause great damage to Big Fat's body, so he simply changed it to the Sky Thunder talisman. Now that everything is ready, the only thing left is time. Something happened. At this time, Gu Zibai's voice and a visual screenshot suddenly came from the team channel. Su Tong called out the screenshot and took a closer look, and was suddenly shocked. What on earth is this guy going to do? Wow, Zhang Hai must be crazy. Are you making such a big fuss? Gao Zhou also saw Gu Zibai's message through the team channel and was shocked. In the message, it was Zhang Hai's Hung who, as a player, posted a message in the exhibition area, inviting all players who can escape from the body to participate in Qingcheng Mountain Lushan dipping, and listed the various benefits of Lushan dipping. Among them is the Zhuangtianmen mentioned before by Taoist Lingxiu. The condition for joining is that after Yuan Shen breaks into Tianmen, he must kill Su Tong with all his strength. Infinite script killing. Author, Guo Shui Gan Xiao. Chapter 733. This guy is crazy. He is using Daemon's treasure as a bargaining chip to chase you. Gao Zhou's voice echoed in the team channel. It seems that Zhang Haishan's behavior is simply unreasonable. Gu Zibai was thousands of miles away and didn't know what the situation was, so he didn't make a speech. Compared to Gao Zhou's mood, Su Tong seemed very calm, or in other words, he was not surprised at all. Ever since they had a falling out in Miai's Huang, they had no intention of leaving any room for each other. There is something about leaving a thin line in life so that we can meet each other easily in the future. This is a lie to ghosts, and even ghosts won't believe it. Don't let me seize the opportunity. If I seize the opportunity, I will kill you. This is the reflection of the two people's hearts. Gu Zibai waited for Gao Zhou to finish yelling before he reminded Su Tong. Your identity information has been exposed. If necessary, you can inform your family. As far as I know, many players work part-time as hunters. These people have no bottom line and do anything. Gotta come out. The struggle between players is not limited to the script world. Even if they meet in real life, it might be life and death. There are some players who are powerful and murderous, and they will look for other players to be their prey in reality. It is rumored that there is such an organization called Shark. Through powerful intelligence resources, it collects all the information on the bounty list that can hunt the targets, and then sorts the information and gives it to those hunters to earn the bounty. These hunters, relying on the information they have, kidnap and kill without any bottom line. Once they find out your information, their first target is your family. Arrest your family members and use this as a threat. Even if you are obedient, they will choose to kill you and silence you after killing you. This is also the reason why many players try their best to hide their true information. Once the information is exposed, the first to be unlucky is their own family members. There are already countless cases like this, so Gu Zibai opened his mouth to remind Su Tong. Family, When Su Tong heard Gu Zibai's suggestion, he held his chin with one hand and pondered for a long time. The only family members he could think of in his mind, besides his master and master, were the old guys in the hospital. However, this old guy does not exist in his own information, so there should be no problem. As for Gaozhou, he is not on the list and there is no big problem. Thinking of this, Su Tong said to the two of them, "Have you eaten the Dawaden? If not, try taking it. If you can get the ability of the soul to leave the body, you might as well try to participate." Since Zhang Haisheng has opened up Luo Tianda to all players, Gaozhou and Gu Zibai cannot miss such a good opportunity. Okay. I'll eat it after I finish training. Gaozhou has long been impatient for De Huaidan. Taking such a top-grade elixir can greatly increase his strength. He is still at the exhibition training ground and plans to pass this level before taking the elixir to increase his strength. Gu Zibai said that she would eat it in the evening. Su Tong then closed the team channel. He had now reached a critical moment and no longer planned to bother with these trivial matters. But I couldn't help but mutter in my heart, what on earth is this guy going to do? Is it really to kill him? Su Tong expressed doubts about this because this method was too radical and not something that someone like Zhang Haisheng, who likes to make decisions and act later, would come up with. Perhaps, this is more like a cover. However, Su Tong could not think too much about it for the time being. At this moment, the soul sacrifice had reached a critical moment and he could not be distracted. He closed his eyes and meditated to increase the intensity of the soul sacrifice. Rumble. The big fat man who was tempered by the fire sacrifice of the soul would have lightning flashes on his body from time to time. His originally huge body became smaller and smaller in the flames, until it finally changed to the size of an adult's palm, and then gradually began to become transparent bit by bit. Time passed minute by minute until the early hours of the night. A prompt sounded from the prop book. Ding. Due to your actions, the prop card magic paper fatty has been destroyed. Su Tong opened his eyes, and a strange feeling came to his heart. I saw that the big fat body in front of me had turned into gray powder, and a transparent, reduced version of the big fat person was suspended in the air on the powder. This little fat man's body was gleaming, shining with the light of pure sunlight in the darkness, and arcs flashed from time to time on his body. Staring at Su Tong with big eyes and small eyes, the two of them shared vision and looked at each other, suddenly feeling like looking into a mirror. However, if you feel it carefully, you can still feel the difference between the two. Su Tong could feel that Big Fat was not entirely himself. He had separate thoughts and even emotions. They are each other but not each other, they are themselves but not themselves. This is the rumored second soul. Finally done. Su Tong's heart moved. The little fat man passed through the partition in the basement and flew into the sky outside. Under the starry sky at night, the surroundings were dark, with only the lights of a few houses in the distance still on. Facing the unfamiliar world in front of him, Su Tong did not use his will to interfere with the little fat man. He wanted the little fat man to see what the world looked like with his own thinking. I was also curious in my heart, what would the little fat man do if he didn't interfere? I saw the little fat man opening his hands, feeling the cool breeze in the air, and looking around curiously with his bright eyes, just like a newborn baby, full of curiosity about the world. He flew over the street and looked at the cleaners who had begun to sweep the road. He saw the food stalls on the side of the road. They had already started pushing carts and setting up tables and chairs on the side of the road. The little fat man looked at the freshly baked fried dough sticks and pot helmets, and couldn't help but smash his little mouth. He tried to open his mouth to the boss in front of him, but found that he couldn't speak yet. And these people couldn't see the little fat man at all. They could only feel a warm wind blowing from their faces, and they didn't feel anything unusual. The little fat man continued to walk forward, but occasionally there was only one car passing by in a hurry on the empty road. The dazzling high beams scared the little fat man. His body was trembling, and a bolt of thunder and lightning burst out from his body. He almost hit the oncoming car, the front of the car tilted, and hit the guardrail on the side before stopping. When the little fat man saw that he was in trouble, he jumped up and ran away. He didn't know where he ran. His chubby little face was filled with confusion for a moment, and he started to turn around and run away timidly. Just when the little fat man looked confused, the fragrance suddenly hit him. The fragrance was so strong that it immediately aroused the greed in the little fat man's stomach and searched for the scent. It was a souvenir stall. The stall stands at the intersection of the road, with only a small table in front of the stall. The white and tender noodles are rising and falling in the soup pot. In the bowl next to it are red oily spicy seeds, a spoonful of lard, cilantro, green onions, and chopped peanuts. As soon as a spoonful of hot soup is poured in, the fragrance is immediately apparent. Floated up. The little fat man's stomach was growling with hunger. The stall owner is an old woman. Although she is old, her clothes are very clean. They are blue with white flowers and a scarf on her head. After seeing the little fat man with her clear eyes, he waved his hand. "Whose child are you from? Why are you so cute?" Su Tong, who was silently observing through Xiaopang's vision, was startled when he heard this. He didn't expect that the old woman could actually see him. Before he could think about it, the old woman put a bowl of hot rice noodles on the table. "Child, come and eat. I don't want your money." The little fat man couldn't bear it now. He sat down in front of the table and stuffed one into his mouth without caring whether it was scalding his mouth or not. Chow chow is different from dumplings. It is big and round, and one bite can almost hold 2 dumplings. The meat filling inside has a fresh aroma, and paired with the red, spicy, sour, and refreshing red soup, it is simply a treat for the taste buds. "Slow down, eat slowly, this kid is so chubby and cute." The old woman couldn't help but cover her mouth and laugh when she saw the little fat man copying his hands one by one. Just after finishing a bowl of chow chow, the old woman brought another bowl. "Child, eat slowly, and go back early after eating. It's almost dawn. If you like to eat, you can come here often. Mother-in-law, don't you, take your money." As she spoke, she gently stroked the little fat man's head with her still warm palm. Although the thick calluses on the old woman's palm could be clearly felt, the feeling of this hand made the little fat man's newborn soul feel a twinge of pain. "It feels like I've never felt before, it's warm, it's reassuring." After the little fat man finished eating the large bowl on the table, he looked up again and saw that the old woman had already pushed the cart away. Her figure gradually disappeared under the street lights, and the sky in the distance had turned white. The little fat man smashed his mouth and jumped back to the basement. This little guy seemed to be tired after walking around in a circle. After circling around him, he landed on top of his head, twisted his round buttocks, and gave it a hard slap. Su Tong immediately felt his head sinking slightly, and after groping around, he found that the little fat man had slipped into his sea of consciousness. If he closed his eyes and rested, he could still feel the little fat man curled up into a ball in the sea of consciousness, and fell asleep soundly. Su Tong took a deep breath and walked out of the basement. The sun had risen in front of him, and the sunlight shone on his cheeks, making Su Tong squint his eyes. "Brother Su." "Huh." Su Tong looked up and saw Meidu had arrived in the corner and was squatting in the corner waiting for him. "When did you come?" "I just came here and saw you meditating. I didn't dare to call you, so I'm waiting for you here." Meidu grinned. When Su Tong saw this, his heart suddenly became hot. "Come on, I'm hungry, let's go have a meal too." "Okay, what are you going to eat?" Meidu touched his belly, stood up and pulled Su Tong out. Su Tong thought for a while. "Let's copy your hands, Hong Tang, copy your hands." You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Infinite Script Killing. Author, Guo Shui Gan Xiao. Chapter 734. Welcome to Take This Flight, please take your belongings with you. Outside Shuangliu Airport, a young man wearing light blue short-sleeved shirts walked out of the airport gate, attracting many people's attention along the way. In particular, some bold girls came over and asked for their contact information. After hurriedly waving his hands to refuse, the young man left in a hurry and came to the pickup station. He looked around as if he was looking for something. After a moment, he heard someone in the distance shouting, "This way, handsome boy." The young man was startled, followed the sound, and saw two people in a car sticking their heads out and waving to him. "Brother Su." The young man stepped forward, looked at Gao Zhou's face and asked tentatively. "I am Lao Gao, and the one behind is our leader." Gao Zhou grinned and pointed at Su Tong, who was sitting in the back row. "Ah!" The young man was startled and looked sideways at the back row. When he saw Su Tong himself, he looked up and down at Su Tong before finally showing a smile on his handsome face. "Tou, I am Gu Zibai. You're paler than I thought." Su Tong stretched out his hand and shook Gu Zibai's hand through the car window. He was actually very surprised by Gu Zibai's appearance. In Su Tong's impression, a martial arts fanatic like Gu Zibai might be just like his image in the script world, tall and mighty, full of muscles, and his image should be he looks as handsome as the old version of Chiao Feng. But after they actually met, he realized that Gu Zibai was very different from the image he had imagined. He is only about 16 centimeters tall, with double eyelids, a high nose bridge, and delicate skin, enough to make even women jealous. In terms of high emotional intelligence, this is the appearance of a boy and a girl, charming but not feminine. The idea of having low emotional intelligence, well, actually, it's not unacceptable to date men. Boarding. Su Tong waved for Gu Zibai to get in the car, and then introduced to Meidu, who was sitting in the driver's seat. "This is another good brother of ours, Gu Zibai, and this is Meidu." While saying this, Su Tong did not forget to explain Meidu's identity to Gu Zibai in the team channel, so as not to let Gu Zibai say anything he shouldn't have said. Gu-11 was stunned for a moment, then shook hands with Meidu with a smile. The four of them then took a car straight to the city, found a hot pot restaurant, and started eating with open stomachs. During this period, Gu Zibai introduced himself again in the team channel. Su Tong waved his hand and said that there was no need to be so formal. Now that he had joined the team, he had no intention of distrusting Gu Zibai. "Brother Su, are we really going to participate in the Luo Tian Da Dip? When I was at the airport, I met at least 2 players." Gu Zibai whispered. Although he is a martial arts fanatic who focuses on martial arts, and even all prop cards are martial arts blessings, his senses are also extremely keen. He can tell at a glance whether the opponent is an ordinary person. Just meeting two people at the airport, one can imagine how many players will show up at Ludo Tienda tomorrow. It's not us, it's the two of us, this idiot is the protector. Su Tong shook his head helplessly. He had hoped that Gao Zhou and Gu Zibai would be able to understand the ability of the soul to leave the body after taking the Dewey pill, but unexpectedly, only Gu Zibai succeeded. It is said that Gu 11 finished his chores during the day, and when he was lying in bed at night, he stuffed it into his mouth, and that night he had the ability to leave the body. As for Gao Zhou, he burned incense and bathed, knelt down and worshipped the Sand King, and finally ate it. In addition to increasing his strength, his ability to leave the body was not awakened at all. This made Su Tong very depressed. If he had known it earlier, he would have given him a script to strengthen it. So the only ones participating in Ludo Tienda this time were himself and Gu Zibai, and Gao Zhou happened to be the protector for them both. An important Taoist ritual like Ludo Tienda's dip will be broadcast live on TV stations and online tomorrow. There are people everywhere, and there are cameras everywhere. No player dares to act rashly in front of so many cameras. Otherwise, the punishment that comes with script space is no joke. And they all have separate rooms, so Gao Zhou alone is basically enough to take care of the two of them. When Gu Zibai learned that Gao Zhou was the protector, his worries were immediately dispelled. The four of them ate at the hot pot restaurant for half the afternoon before they were satisfied. They didn't need to go back to Mei's house and just went straight to Qingcheng Mountain. When they arrived at the foot of Qingcheng Mountain, the four of them got out of the car and saw densely packed heads at the foot of the mountain. It's so crowded that it's almost impossible to see the end. In the past few days, Lushan dipping will last for a total of 28 days. In fact, the first 10 days or so were just chanting sutras to invite the gods from the heavens. After all the gods were invited, it was really started, which lasted only 3 days. Daytime, and the next 10 or so days will be the ceremony to send the gods back, to send the invited gods back. In other words, the real Ludo Tienda dipping only lasted for 3 days. Don't bother yourself. This is Lushan Dachan. Compared with Zhoutian Dachan and Puxian Dachan, this is already simple. Fortunately, Su Tong and the others did not need to crowd in with these tourists. Instead, they took out their invitations and went directly up the mountain from the Green Channel. When he reached the halfway point of the mountain, Su Tong saw 2 old Taoist priests from Qingcheng Mountain. As soon as the 2 old Taoist priests saw Su Tong, they immediately lost their good looks. He didn't even bother to give a symbolic hand gesture. He curled his lips to ignore Su Tong and walked up the mountain. Su Tong was already used to seeing this. He remembered that when Meidu took him to the back mountain for the first time, these old guys didn't feel good about him after hearing his name. What's more, now that I have completely broken up with Qingcheng Mountain, this is even more so. Seeing that the 2 old Taoists ignored him, Su Tong raised his head and strode to the back. As he walked, he sang, "The girl on the mountain is so beautiful. The girl on the mountain has long thighs. The girl on the mountain is watery. I am the woodcutter is hard." Good guy. The 2 old masters almost got angry when they heard the singing, but they couldn't do anything with Su Tong. I don't know where Su Tong came from so many erotic words and vulgar tunes. After singing Girl, the song 18 Touches was followed immediately. Not to mention that the 2 veteran singers couldn't stand it, even Meidu and Gu Zibai blushed when they heard it. Su Tong also deliberately slowed down his pace. The 2 of them walked slower, and he also walked slower. The lyrics in his mouth became more and more vulgar, which made the 2 veterans blush. "Oh, you! How can you be so arrogant?" When we reached the top of the mountain, an old Taoist finally couldn't bear it anymore and wanted to scold Su Tong angrily. As a result, Su Tong's expression became serious. "Infinite Heavenly Lord, the 2 Taoist priests are not certain enough. This is far inferior to Zhang Xiao." He was hugging left and right in J courtyard and sipping aphrodisiac, but compared with this much more fragrant. Nonsense. Hearing this, the old Taoist almost spit out a mouthful of blood. In their hearts, Zhang Haisheng was the most perfect disciple. How could he go to such a place? Don't believe it? If you don't believe it, we can go to Zhang Haisheng to confront him. I dare to swear by my Taoist heart. If there is a lie in my mouth, I will die a good death and fall into hell forever. I dare to say this, but I am afraid that your family will not teach you dare to respond. Now the two veterans were confused. Su Tong's move was too yin damaging. People who practice are most afraid of speaking morally. What's more, he swears by his Taoist heart. Although these words are not bound by any contract, they are heard by heaven and earth. If he really tells a lie, there will be retribution in the world. If Zhang Haisheng does not dare to respond, then he has a guilty conscience. It would be great fun if Zhang Haisheng dared to respond. In front of everyone, if this newly promoted master dared to go to J Academy, he would probably make headlines soon. The expressions of the two Taoists changed again and again, their eyes widened, and they wished they could cut Su Tong into pieces with 1,000 knives. This is a Taoist holy land. You are the leader of a sect, how could you do such a deed? Humph, it's no wonder. After all, he comes from a lower class and can't get on the stage. The two old men talked to each other with sarcastic words, trying to change the story, but they didn't expect Su Tong to bite the bullet to death. No matter how much you insulted him, Su Tong always responded unhurriedly. That sentence. Your master has had sex with C. Suddenly, the two old Taoists lost their temper and wanted to fight Su Tong. However, firstly they could not beat Su Tong, who was at the peak of Taoism. Secondly, they were afraid of causing trouble, so Su Tong really questioned Zhang Haisheng in front of everyone. Su Tong is barefoot and is not afraid of wearing shoes, but Zhang Haisheng is the current leader of Qingchen Mountain. Regardless of whether Zhang Haisheng admits it or not, he will bring shame to the entire Qingchen Mountain. Fortunately, at this time, Taoist Lingxiu and the others heard the commotion in the distance and came over. They took Su Tong's hand with a smile and said, "Fellow Taoist Su is here just in time. The ceremony will be over soon. Don't delay here. Come in quickly with me." Taoist Lingxiu's words were actually to smooth things over. Su Tong's voice was so loud that many people could hear it from a distance. Taoist Lingxiu was no exception. If this was a normal time, he would be happy to watch the excitement without taking it too seriously, but not today. If there was a real fuss and the ceremony was disrupted, the Tianxincao they wanted would be gone. Seeing Taoist Lingxiu dragging Su Tong away, the two old Taoists from Qingchen Mountain almost cursed in their hearts, but their faces remained calm and they turned their heads silently, pretending not to see him. Only when Su Tong and the others left did he let out a long sigh of relief. He had already made up his mind to never see this kid again. It was really disgusting. The group of people followed Taoist Lingxiu through the Patriarch's Hall and saw hundreds of Taoists surrounding the altar, chanting scriptures and stepping on the 7-star steps. Every time they walked around, they saw the spiritual flags on the altar flashing. It seemed to be covered with a layer of gold, blooming in the sunlight. Su Tong opened his life icon, and was immediately shocked by the scene in front of him. He saw dots of golden light flickering in the void, vaguely forming a golden staircase, which led straight to the sky, and was the same as the golden staircase on Qingchen Mountain. The kingdom of God is connected. When he raised his head to see more clearly, he saw a huge vermilion door at the end of the golden steps. The door was tightly closed at the moment. There was a plaque on it with 2 golden ancient characters Heaven Gate written on it. Infinite script killing. Author, Guo Shui Gan Xiao. Chapter 736. That's Tianmen. Su Tong looked at the gate standing on Qingchen Mountain in a daze. I have eaten below pill before, and I can be considered a person who has entered the heaven. However, below pill is a trick after all, with too many restrictions, and it is far less cost-effective than rushing into the heavenly gate like this. Don't look, the heaven's gate is not open yet. It will not open until the sun and moon change tomorrow. Taoist Links Yu urged Su Tong and the others to go inside, through the hall on the side, and beyond that was the guest room. Originally, the guest rooms here could be provided for pilgrims to stay, but now they have become temporary rooms for Taoist Links Yu and others. I saw Taoist Links Yu leading Su Tong into one of the rooms, taking out the clothes he had prepared earlier and handing them to Su Tong. As a representative of Mi's Huang, Su Tong also has to participate in the final ceremony, so his clothes need to be more formal. As for Gu Zibai, who was also participating, he had no such requirements. Su Xiao, the Jianghu matter belongs to the Jianghu. Don't take the Jianghu matter out of the Jianghu. Taoist Links Yu took Su Tong's hand and warned him. Su Tong understood the meaning of Taoist Links Yu's words. Don't worry, Taoist master, I understand the rules. Okay, okay. Taoist Links Yu nodded repeatedly, and then led Su Tong out of the guest room and went straight to Lejun Pavilion. When we arrived outside Lejun Pavilion, we saw an altar, where a group of Taoist masters and famous martial arts figures were waiting for the ceremony to be completed. This Lejun Pavilion is located at the top of Qingcheng. The building is magnificent and round at the bottom. It means that the sky is round and the place is round, and the layers have 8 corners to represent the 8 diagrams. The appearance is in the shape of a tower, with 3 round treasures on the top, which symbolize the 3 talents of heaven, earth, and man. At this moment, the outside of Lejun Pavilion has been blocked, and no one else is allowed to enter. From time to time, you can see many people under Lejun Pavilion holding up their mobile phones to start live broadcast. With the guidance of Taoist Links Yu, Su Tong and his party had a smooth journey. Head. At this time, Gu Zibai pulled Su Tong's arm and glanced to the left. Su Tong followed Gu Zibai's gaze and saw a young man and woman sitting in the shade of Lejun's attic eating ice cream. Talking and laughing, just like a couple. The Kimen of the life eye opened, and the two of them indeed exuded a strange aura, with great luck behind them. There is a Tao fruit vaguely visible behind the man, while behind the woman there is a strange stone statue. It is hard to tell what kind of cultivation it is, but its strength should not be much worse than that of the Taoist realm. This is not surprising. The props in the script world are all kinds of strange, and cultivation is not the only path. For example, Gao Zhou is taking the zombie route. Gu Zibai is purely a physical martial artist. There are also Western superpower evolution routes and so on. So it's normal that I can't tell someone else's base, but since I dare to come, it means I have the ability to leave my body. The man and woman also noticed Su Tong's gaze. The woman raised her head and glanced at Su Tong curiously, and gave Su Tong a provocative look with a half-smile. In addition to this pair of men and women, there are also many similar players in Lejun Pavilion. Some of these people are pretending to be rememberers, and some are pretending to be Taoist priests. Gao Zhuoyu feels more and more troublesome the further he goes. Unexpectedly, the news released by Zhang Haisheng could attract so many players. This is only what can be seen, and there are probably even more players who follow the tourists up the mountain. Zhang Haisheng spent a lot of money this time. Not only was he willing to share the treasure behind Tianmen, but he also exposed all the information he knew about Su Tong, especially the time prop card. This prop card alone is enough to fascinate many players. In other words, once the hunt is successful, both the treasures in Tianmen and the prop cards on Su Tong will become his trophies. The group of people climbed to the top of the attic and saw that the heads of various families had been waiting here for a long time, including Zhang Haisheng, who was sitting at the head of the room. The two men met each other's eyes, and Su Tong didn't even bother to give a symbolic hand gesture. He sat on the chair expressionlessly, not paying attention to Zhang Haisheng, the master of Qing Cheng Mountain and an enlightened heavenly being. Although everyone present had expected it, they did not expect Su Tong to be so disrespectful when facing Zhang Haisheng. The grievances between Su Tong and Zhang Haisheng are now well known to everyone. Zhang Haisheng wanted to kill Su Tong, but Su Tong broke the spiritual roots of Qing Cheng Mountain. This is already an endless blood feud. In reality, everyone still has some scruples, but if they really break into the Tianmen, it will no longer be a place protected by the law. Zhang Haisheng was not angry about this, he just picked up the teacup calmly and tasted the tea carefully. It seemed that he didn't feel the slightest discomfort about Su Tong's appearance, just treating him as a transparent person. All fellow Taoists are here. At this time, two young Taoist priests came up carrying a bamboo sedan. When everyone took a look, it turned out to be Taoist Dongxian. So they all stood up to greet him. Taoist Dongxian is recovering well. In just a few days, he is already able to speak normally. He could even wave his arms freely. This scene made the old Chinese doctor who diagnosed Dongxian Taoist before say a miracle. In the eyes of outsiders, this is because Dongxian Taoist has been practicing for a long time and his physique is amazing, and he can recover in such a short time. But Taoist Lingxiu and others felt that something was strange. Because Taoist Dongxuan's expression is not quite right, generally speaking, no matter how well a person who has suffered a stroke recovers, it will be difficult to cover up the loss of energy and blood. But Taoist Dongxian was not only full of energy, but even had a rosy complexion, and the hall was glowing red. The people present were not laymen, but if you look carefully, it is not difficult to see that there is something wrong with Taoist Dongxuan's body, and the problem is serious. However, if you see through it without saying it, everyone still has some respect for Taoist Dongxian. After all, this Taoist master, Taishan, once served the country and the people when he was young, eradicating evil and evil. When Su Tong glanced at him, he naturally noticed this. He looked at Taoist Lingxiu next to him and saw the old Taoist shaking his head at him. "Disciple, please pay your respects to master." When Zhang Haisheng saw Taoist Dongxian, his expression changed slightly. He hurried forward to greet him and bowed down in honor of Taoist Dongxian. This scene made many people envious. It is appropriate for a disciple to give a big salute to his master. But Zhang Haisheng is an enlightened heavenly being, one of the best, and now he has officially become the master of Qing Cheng Mountain, so his status in the Taoist sect is certainly not what it used to be. It is said that a Taoist priest, in addition to pursuing the great path throughout his life, is to find a suitable successor to inherit his mantle. In this regard, Taoist Dongxian is definitely a winner in life. Master Dongxian is so lucky. Some people sighed, which resonated with everyone, and they all praised Taoist Dongxian for teaching the Taoist sect a contemporary leader. With this enlightened heavenly man sitting in Qing Cheng, the future revival of the Taoist sect is expected. Faced with the praise from everyone, Taoist Dongxian was very pleased. I saw Zhang Haisheng stepping forward, bending down personally, and trying to carry Taoist Dongxian on his back. This move made Taoist Dongxian startled, and his face darkened, and he was about to let Zhang Haisheng get up. He now represents Qing Cheng Mountain, the pinnacle of the Taoist sect, and every move he makes must represent the face of Qing Cheng Mountain. How can he be so groveling and childish? But before Taoist Dongxian could speak, Zhang Haisheng lowered his head and his eyes were slightly red. "Master, the first time I went up the mountain when I was a child, you carried me up. Now that you can't walk, let your disciple carry you." Upon hearing these words, all the words Taoist Dongxian wanted to reprimand were stuck in his throat. At this time, Zhang Haisheng had already carried Taoist Dongxian on his back, took a deep breath, stood up and carried Taoist Dongxian forward. Zhang Haisheng could no longer hear the flattering voices of the people around him. The only sound in my ears was the heartbeat of Taoist Dongxian. He knew that it was the countdown to his master's life. "Master, Your disciple is unfilial and has caused you trouble over the years. If you come back in the next life, I will be here to guard you. Zhang Haisheng murmured, but Dongxian Taoist looked moved. But for a moment, a touch of determination flashed on the face of this 70-year-old old man and he snorted, "Is this what I teach you on weekdays? How can a little daughter's posture become such a big deal?" After saying that, he just waited for Zhang Haisheng to put him on the chair, and then pushed Zhang Haisheng away. Looking around, everyone felt a solemn sense of oppression from Taoist Dongxian. "Immeasurable Heavenly Lord, I have been a knight in my entire life, wandered around the world, run a Taoist school, and have been in charge of Qingcheng for 43 years. Now there are people who will follow me. In this life, my words are worth it." Everyone looked at each other and didn't know how to respond to Taoist Dongxuan's generous speech. Some discerning people have already figured out at this moment that the reason why Taoist Dongxian is in the spirit of dragon and tiger at the moment is probably because he took some tiger and wolf medicine to force his recovery. Although this kind of tiger and wolf medicine has a temporary effect, once the potency wears off, Taoist Dongxian may die. Everyone present was a master, a foreign sect, who boasted that they had a clear view on life and death, but when it came to the moment of death, no one could say what kind of attitude they would take. To be as broad-minded as Taoist Dongxian, it's really rare. While admiring him in his heart, he could not help but cast a somewhat cold look at Su Tong, who was sitting beside him. After all, the new leader of the 7 sects of Mi's Huang did an incredible job, breaking Qingcheng Mountain's spiritual roots and burning Qingcheng Mountain's 1,000-year luck. But no one dared to reprimand him. After all, Su Tong was also famous for his tyranny. After the Yin-Yang cave was separated, most of the heterodox families in the world were forced to wash their hands and withdraw from the world. Nowadays, it is rumored that this person is at the peak of Taoism. Everyone likes to add insult to injury, but no one likes to be the first to do so. Zhang Haisheng hadn't taken action against him yet, so they didn't dare to offend this evil star rashly. "It's just that I can't help but mutter in my heart, what kind of master there are what kind of disciples." Taoist Dongxian saw that the time was almost up, so he bowed to everyone, and with the support of 2 Taoist boys, he planned to go to the altar to personally preside over the last step of Luo Tian Dazan's ceremony. As a practitioner, this may be his last bit of dignity. Zhang Haisheng wanted to help him, but he was pushed away by Taoist Dongxian. However, when he left, he couldn't help but look back at his disciple. This time he left and said goodbye forever. He thought to himself, "My son, what can master do? Yes, I just want to fight for you again." Zhang Haishen's expression was shocked, his eyes were red, and he couldn't help the fluctuations in his heart. He took 2 steps forward and knelt heavily on the ground. "Disciple, I would like to send master off." "Congratulations, Master Dongxian." Everyone bowed in unison to see off Taoist Dongxian. Even Taoist Lingxiu and the 3 veteran Taoists were moved at this moment and bowed with everyone to see him off. This scene touched Taoist Dongxuan's heart. Just as his heart was heaving, suddenly he glanced at Su Tong. As a result, this glance almost sent Master Dongxian away on the spot. I saw that Su Tong had tied a garland at some point, and there was a paper man standing next to the garland. The paper man looked lifelike, exactly the same as Zhang Haisheng, and he was holding an elegiac couplet in his hand: "Master leaves first, apprentice the sun will come soon." Infinite script killing. Author, Guo Shui Gan Xiao. Chapter 737. Su Tong's move really hurt his heart. Everyone could see that Taoist Dongxian obviously did not want him to lie on the bed for the rest of his life and take some kind of secret medicine to forcefully recover his body. The price of doing so would definitely make him unable to live long. It is the greatest respect for Taoist Dongxian that everyone sees through it but does not tell it. Su Tong's elegiac couplets and garlands were all brought up, especially the elegiac couplet. The master left first, and the apprentice followed. This made it clear that he wanted you to die first, and then I will kill your apprentice. Taoist Dong Suan's mouth trembled with anger. Su Tong, you have gone too far. Zhang Haisheng was so angry that he stood on his head with his long hair and shouted angrily that he was going to fight Su Tong. There are even more extreme ones. Do you want to try it? Su Tong stood up with a sneer. Facing the huge aura surging around Zhang Haisheng, he did not flinch at all. It was too much. Where is this? There are even more excessive things that he has not used yet. Seeing the two people's auras surging, everyone present felt their scalps go numb. Some elderly Taoists were trembling with fear. The aura between heaven and man was almost too much for them to bear. If a fight breaks out, why not send these old bones away on the spot to add to the fun? Stop. But Dongxian Taoist calmed down at this moment, scolded Zhang Haisheng, and told him to stop. Dongxian Taoist looked at Su Tong with a very angry smile. The seven masters personally sent me a wreath. It's too late for me to be grateful. But this elegiac couplet only has the first half of the sentence but not the second half, so why not fill it in with some pen and ink? As soon as Taoist Dongxian finished speaking, the Taoist boy at the side immediately brought pen, ink, paper, and seals. Taoist Dongxian picked up his writing brush and said, "It is also a joy of life to be able to write an elegiac couplet for myself in this life." After saying that, the brush in his hand was flying, and he wrote the second couplet in a moment. Everyone looked at it intently, and everyone clapped their hands and applauded. Flowers fall and fruits grow, continuing the unique teachings of our predecessors. Good. Everyone clapped their hands and applauded. Taoist Dongxian put down his brush and stared at Su Tong coldly. "Humph, let's see how long you can laugh. Then don't worry. By the time I stop laughing, you'll be dead." When it comes to talking nonsense, Su Tong has never been afraid of anyone. But in his heart, he also felt a little afraid of Taoist Dong Suan's forbearance. The more forbearing the enemy was, the more prepared he was. When death was imminent, this old guy became more and more calm. This was not a good sign. Fellow Taoists, this is my farewell. Dongxian Taoist knew that he couldn't take advantage of him. Now that he had settled the matter and regained his face, he refused to give Su Tong a chance to further stimulate him. He waved his hand and let the two Taoist boys carry him away quickly. Zhang Haisheng stared at Su Tong coldly for a moment, flicked his long sleeves, turned around and left. Zhang Haisheng left, and everyone else dispersed in a hurry. Taoist Lingxiu looked at Su Tong sideways and said, "Fellow Taoist Su, why are you doing this? The dead one is the most important. That's someone else. I burned Qingcheng Mountain's luck for thousands of years and cut off their family's spiritual roots. This old guy won't let me go even if he's a ghost. In this case, why should I be polite to him? Besides, I have the foundation of Kimen. That's right, if you don't give him a she-male with big breasts and a bare butt, it's just polite. Hey you, ha ha ha." Taoist Lingxiu was also amused, but then he thought about it. If Su Tong really placed two she-males in front of his grave, Taoist Lingxiu bared his teeth just thinking about it. Everyone did not leave Lejun Pavilion, but found a place to meditate quietly on other floors of Lejun Pavilion, waiting for the last god of Luo Tianda to arrive. Time passed by, and many pilgrims could not bear it and left one after another. But many people are still waiting patiently. The three of Su Tong found a clean place. In order to prevent someone from jumping over the wall in a hurry, Su Tong also specially used the mountain buckle. I saw the door slowly opening, and what came out was the old Taoist. "Eh? Why is it you today?" Su Tong was a little confused at first, but after seeing that it was a veteran, he breathed a sigh of relief. The eldest princess's strength is undeniable, but Su Tong asked her to keep her physical body for him, which always felt like asking Sun Hao or how to take care of the Daowen. "Don't come back by yourself. No one else has done anything. Most of the blood in your body has been sucked away by this old woman. The eldest princess is in retreat recently, and it happens to be Pandao's turn to be on duty. Lao Dao and the eldest princess, and even the Mei family zombies and mountain ghosts each have different divisions of labor. However, Lao Dao and the eldest princess work in shifts, and today it is Lao Dao who is on duty. The old man walked out of the door with a smile. As soon as Gao Zhou saw the Taoist master, he immediately walked up and called out a coffin, "Master, look, it's all packed up for you and kept well." When the old man took a look at the coffin, he saw that it was actually made of rosewood. He immediately became happy. Okay, just put it away." "Ah, you don't want to go in?" Gao Zhou was startled, but he didn't expect that the old Taoist didn't seem to have any intention of entering the physical body and making himself perfect. "I won't go in. Now is not the time. We still have to wait." "Oh, okay." Gao Zhou nodded with some disappointment, thinking, if you don't want it anymore, you should tell me as soon as possible. I'm really afraid that I won't be able to help you and make you practice. The old man fumbled for 4 flags from his sleeves, looked around, and asked Gao Zhou to place the flags in the 4 directions. As soon as the flags fell to the ground, Su Tong immediately felt that the surrounding aura seemed to have changed. It's not advisable to show off with fists and kicks. This is the lost formation. It's enough to help you hold on for a while. With Pandao as the host, you can go ahead, young master. I feel relieved when you are here. Taoist Sun Long was very scheming and careful in his work. If Su Tong hadn't used the opportunity to make a fortune to trap him, he might not have been a match for this old guy. Therefore, I still have full confidence in the guarantee of the veteran. Head, why do I think you are more like a summoning flow? Gu Zibai stood aside, watching Su Tong and Lao Tao talking and laughing, and couldn't help scratching his head. The last time he appeared in the script was a girl, and now he has become an old man again, and with his powerful perception, he couldn't detect the old man's strength, which meant that his strength was still higher than his own. This made him stronger than the summoning players he had ever seen. If Gu Zibai hadn't fought against Su Tong, I would have doubted whether Su Tong was majoring in summoning. Hey. Su Tong grinned when he heard this and did not explain. Gao Zhou, on the other hand, patted Gu Zibai on the shoulder and said, "It's incomparable. It took 3 generations to accumulate wealth, but we started from scratch." When Su Tong heard this, he thought of the ancestors of the Gao family who were still buried in the pit, and sneered, "I will keep these words for you, and I will return them to you when your son inherits the family business. Farewell. My father's intention is to wait for me to become a family property and give it to his precious grandson." While several people were talking, the old Taoist suddenly seemed to notice something. He raised his head, looked at the sky, and sighed with envy. It is indeed the first cave in Taoism. Su Tong took a look and saw bright golden light in the sky and misty fairy clouds. There seemed to be many huge figures standing high above the clouds. Those figures were the gods of the heavens who were invited this time. The gods from the heavens came to the world, and layers of auspicious clouds appeared in the sky. Even people with a little bit of practice can see some vague shadows. Ordinary people, on the other hand, could only see layers of halos appearing in the sky for the first time. If the poor Taoist could have had this opportunity back then, why would he have bothered to do such unnatural things? The old Taoist couldn't help but sigh with emotion. He could only say that he was born in the wrong time. It happened to be the worst of times, leaving him stuck in the quagmire and unable to get out. Although we are in the age of the end of the Dharma, everything is convenient, such as Lushan Dazao. If we wanted to organize it in ancient times, on the one hand, it would be difficult for the government to explain it, and on the other hand, it would not be easy to recruit so many Taoist priests. Even if they raise manpower, food, drink, and diarrhea are all money, and ordinary Taoist temples cannot afford so many resources. But things are different now. The transportation is convenient, the country is peaceful and the people are safe. Although Taoism is not a world-famous religion, with its incense resources, it always has enough food and clothing. As long as the Taoist sect is willing, it can even find a trick to open Zhou Tiandi without any problem. It's a pity that this kind of opportunity does not belong to old guys like them. At this moment, the sun began to set, and the moon quietly appeared in the sky. When the sun and the moon were facing each other, all the Taoists under the altar just finished reciting the true name of the last immortal. Suddenly, the Dharma flag in the center of the Dharma altar began to move automatically without any wind, and the flag began to flash with brilliant golden light. The golden light was like a rainbow bridge, connecting the heaven and the earth. Even ordinary people could see this scene. For a while, there was an endless stream of people shouting for gods on Qingcheng Mountain, and people from the TV station also held up their cameras and started filming. Many pilgrims have begun praying with their hands on their chests. Of course, there are some experts in the crowd who explain to everyone that this may be some kind of optical principle and not a miracle. Just take a look and don't take it too seriously. But in the eyes of those practitioners, there was a different scene. There is a faint ladder rising straight into the sky. At the end of the ladder, a vermilion door slowly opens. You can see the goddess scattering flowers. In a trance, you can hear the sound of heaven and the sound of the fairy bell and chime. Heaven's gate is open. Seeing the Tianmen open, a stream of light quickly rushed into the sky and headed straight for the Tianmen. Not good. Someone beat me to it. Upon seeing this, Gu Zibai hurriedly called out his soul, but an old Taoist on the side suddenly grabbed his arm. Wait a minute. You are not allowed to enter at this time. Sure enough, as the old Taoist voice fell, the soul that rushed into the sky seemed to have suffered a heavy blow. It screamed in mid-air and was actually beaten to death. All these people were shocked, and their souls were scattered. If there was no second soul, this person would basically be a corpse. Boom. Boom. Just when everyone was at a loss, they heard two gongs and drums coming from Tianmen. When everyone took a look, they saw someone walking out of the Tianmen. They were two fairy boys, a boy and a girl. The fairy boys had delicately carved little pink faces and were very cute. The two walked out holding an incense burner as big as an iron pot. Then he stood next to the incense burner and said, "Today there are sentient beings petitioning to move heaven and earth, and they will open the gate of immortality and come to the world for the destined people. The time of one stick of incense is limited. If the incense burns through the door, those who stay will be punished on the same day and destroyed on earth." It is strange to say that only a few people can hear the voices of the pair of fairy boys. The vast majority of people, even if they are practicing and can see the fairy boy, cannot hear what the fairy boy said. For example, Su Tong and Gu Zibai can hear it, but Gao Zhou cannot. This seems to be a kind of screening. Only those who are qualified to break into the Tianmen can hear it. After the fairy boys on the left and right said this, they looked at each other and immediately raised their voices and chanted loudly, "The gate of heaven is open." Before the words could be finished, the boy on the left jumped up and turned into a long incense stick and inserted it into the incense burner. The girl on the right lit up the incense candle with flames all over her body. Only then did everyone realize that the pair of exquisitely crafted fairy boys were actually transformed into a piece of incense candle and a wisp of open flame. For a moment, they couldn't help but yearn for the world behind the Tianmen even more. Sorry, I almost finished writing this update in the afternoon. As a result, there was a power outage at home, twice in a row, so I delayed posting it until now. If there is no power outage tonight, there should be another update. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Infinite Script Killing. Author, Guo Shui Gan Xiao. Chapter 738. Whoosh. At this time, A straight silver light shot straight into the sky. The silver light was like a comet dragging its long tail. If you look carefully, you can see that Zhang Haishan's figure was wrapped in the silver light and rushed towards the Tianmen. But this time, there was no more if there are obstacles, there will be no obstacles. With Zhang Haisheng taking the lead, others began to escape from their souls one after another. So much. Gu Zibai was also shocked when he saw this. He knew that there must be a lot of players participating this time, but he was still shocked to see so many multi-spirited beings leaving their bodies. Let's go. Su Tong lit the yellow incense in the incense burner and used the yellow incense to lead the way to escape from the soul. Gu Zibai was much simpler. The boy stretched out his hand and patted his forehead 3 times, and a miniature version of Gu Zibai emerged from the Baihui point on the top of his head. For a moment, the 2 souls turned into streams of light and rushed into the sky, heading straight towards the Tianmen along the golden steps. It was also the first time for Gu Zibai to control his soul to fly so high. The speed was not that fast for a while. Fortunately, Su Tong was already familiar with the road. Flying with this guy, the speed was not slower than the others at all, but even faster. When a Yuan Shen of unknown origin saw Su Tong and Gu Zibai, he suddenly changed direction. A black flame rippled from the Yuan Shen and rushed towards Su Tong. Seeing this, Su Tong glanced at his brows, summoned the Chunyang sword, and immediately struck with the sword. The sword's edge, like lightning, collided with the flame, making a dull sound. Boom! The flames exploded on the Chunyang sword, but turned into countless fire bees and attacked Su Tong directly. Fry! The other party is obviously a master of playing with fire. The flames are endlessly changing and can form terrifying explosions. Countless flames surge in an instant, like a brilliant firework. Extreme vortex. There was a sudden swirl in the sea of fire, followed by a terrifying flame vortex. Not only were all the black flames instantly swallowed up by the vortex, but what was even more terrifying was that the flames in the vortex instantly turned into vermilion. As Su Tong pushed with his hands, a terrifying flame storm formed and came back. This move was completely unexpected by the opponent. Caught off guard, he could only use the ability of the prop card to quickly distance himself from Su Tong. His purpose was not to fight Su Tong to death, but to attract more people to attack Su Tong. As long as a siege is formed and everyone sets fire together, I believe it is not difficult to kill this person. It's just that Su Tong couldn't see this trick. This is the same principle as fighting in a group. Since the other party is willing to be the first, he doesn't know how to be a small family. When he waved his hand, a strange talisman appeared in his palm. The talisman is completely different from ordinary talismans. It has neither an edict nor a god's name. The texture on it is even more bizarre, like a strange giant dragon circling. This is the characteristic of the magic technique created by Yan Shu. It is shaped according to the context of heaven and earth. It does not need to be like Buddhism, but it needs to use the name of gods to make orders. Boom! The talisman flashed, and then turned into a bolt of thunder falling from the sky, hitting the opponent's soul directly. If the human world is like a sea of suffering, the physical body is like a small boat crossing the sea of suffering. Although it is small, it can shelter from the wind and rain. Now that the soul is out of the body, it is equivalent to losing the protection of the physical body. When struck by lightning, the spirit will immediately become disorganized and the consciousness will float. By the time he came to his senses, Su Tong and Gu Zibai had already flown in front of him, and the pure yang sword struck the guy's soul directly, cutting his soul apart. Tiger roars. Gu Zibai punched at the same time, like a tiger, erupting with terrifying power, sweeping the surrounding wind and clouds, and with unrivaled martial arts will, he punched half of the soul to pieces. The remaining half of the spirit had no time to escape. Su Tong pinched the Sun Zi seal with his hand and used Yan technique. His thoughts turned into a big net, tightly binding his spirit. Then he slapped him with his backhand and completely shattered his soul. The whole process was so smooth that it was dizzyingly fast. Su Tong's ruthlessness made other people around him who wanted to take action quickly calm down. Don't fight with him, break through the ferry gate first. Some people saw that Su Tong was acting ruthlessly, so they did not intend to tangle with him here, and rushed to the Tianmen first, intending to get the treasures in the Tianmen first and then find a way to kill this person. For a moment, everyone formed a tacit understanding and rushed to break into the Tianmen. Even if he can't hunt Su Tong, even if he gets the treasures in Tianmen, this trip is not a loss, at least it's worth the money for his air ticket. When Su Tong and Gu Zibai saw this, they immediately accelerated and broke into Tianmen almost at the same time. Who knew that as soon as he entered the Tianmen, the world was spinning in front of him, and he couldn't tell the difference between east, west, north, and south. His soul seemed to have lost control and suddenly fell rapidly. After passing the Tianmen, you will reach the realm of gods. With the power of their souls, they naturally cannot fly freely here. Fortunately, Su Tong and Gu Zibai were lucky enough to fall rapidly. Gu Zibai suddenly found a floating forest on the left. His eyes lit up. He pulled Su Tong's legs and kicked them. He used the Qinggong ladder to make a somersault, and he and Su Tong fell into an ancient tree. As for the others, they were not as lucky as Su Tong and Gu Zibai. Who would have thought that the Yuan Shen was flying outside to escape to the earth? As soon as he entered the Tianmen, he lost his center of gravity. Without time to take precautions, some people fell on the floating island. Some people don't know where they fell. Su Tong and Gu Zibai shook their heads. It was obvious that they had been knocked hard. When they took a closer look, they saw that the tree was surprisingly huge. Just one branch made it feel like there were 4 lanes. The road is generally wide. Standing on it, Su and Tong felt like little sparrows before the full moon. My darling, I looked quite small just now, but I didn't expect this tree to be so big. Gu Zibai entered the heaven for the first time, and everything he saw was strange. When he walked to the tree trunk and looked down, he suddenly felt dizzy and the soles of his feet felt weak. Oh my God, it's so high, how are we going to get down? I saw that the trunk of the tree was at least several hundred meters away from the ground. Just climbing down from here was enough for 2 people. Su Tong was very calm. He had eaten Biluodan and been to Bilashan once. He knew that the heaven was vast and vast. If ordinary people like them really walked on 2 legs, God knows how many years it would take. The most important thing now is to first figure out where they are. Thinking of this, Su Tong called out the props book and took out a parchment, which was the map given to him by Master Lingxiu. It was more like a scripture than a map. The dense small characters on it made it difficult to read this thing associated with the map. However, when Su Tong opened the parchment, he saw golden texture flashing on it, and every word on it became vivid. After a while, a line of small words appeared in front of Su Tong and Gu Zibai. This place is called Wusi Zhongyu Tian. It is infinitely large and can be traveled by wind. There is a tree in the middle with 7 treasures growing on it. It is an extremely rare treasure. Looking at the small words in front of him, Su Tong was thoughtful. He simply walked to the tree trunk and looked left and right for a moment. Suddenly his eyes fixed and he stared into the distance. That thing should be the wind duct, right? Gu Zibai heard the words and stepped forward to take a look, and saw that there was indeed a transparent giant visible to the naked eye in the distance, penetrating the sky and extending to who knows where. Occasionally, he would see something flying past very fast. Even with Gu Zibai's eyesight, he could not see clearly what it was. He could only see a cyan shadow dimly. Gudong. Gu Zibai swallowed and looked at the distance between them and the wind tunnel. Boss, even if that is the wind tunnel, how are we going to get there? Yuan Shen cannot fly in the God realm. If they had to walk, although they were fast, they would probably have to walk until dark before they could reach the wind tunnel. Su Tong frowned. This was a problem. Just as the two were struggling, a cool breeze suddenly blew up around them, and then they heard a burst of laughter. What's the problem? I can take you there. Accompanied by laughter, the two looked back and saw a giant green bird quietly sitting on the treetops. The giant bird was 2 times larger than the two souls of Su Tong and Gu Zibai combined. It landed on the tree trunk and looked at the two people from a high position. Su Tong and Gu Zibai were immediately on guard as if they were facing a formidable enemy. Stand up. What's even more bizarre is that the giant bird can actually speak human words. Seeing the alert expressions of Su Tong and Gu Zibai, it burst into laughter. The kings of heaven have already told us that we should try our best to providing convenience to those who are destined to do so. It turns out that this bird is a colorful blue sparrow, a sacred bird in the heaven. Those who break into the heaven can use this bird to travel. This is also a benefit. However, after the green bird finished speaking, his words changed. However, helping you cannot be in vain. Do you carry any tribute with me? Tribute. Hearing this, Su Tong and Gu Zibai immediately looked at each other with tears in their eyes. It was their first time here, and they had never heard of bringing tributes. Taoist Lingxiu didn't say that either. In fact, this cannot be blamed on Taoist Lingxiu. After all, the last time he broke into Tianmen was hundreds of years ago. It is normal for Taoist Lingxiu not to know the secret. Seeing this, Qing Ke suddenly narrowed his eyes. If there are no tributes, I won't be able to care about you. As he spoke, he flapped his wings and left. Etc. Seeing this, Su Tong hurriedly called Qing Ke, fumbled around in the prop book for a while, took out a piece of money, and presented it with the attitude of giving it a try. Is this good? Qing Ke took a closer look, and his small eyes suddenly started to wander. That's all. As he spoke, he opened his mouth and swallowed the money in Su Tong's hand. Then he spread his wings and said, "Come up here. With this little money, I can take you flying for 1 day at most." When Su Tong and Gu Zibai heard this, they couldn't help but twitch their mouths. Good guy, it's true that I can't survive poverty. This God's world is really a humming reality. Infinite script killing. Author, Guo Shui Gan Xiao. Chapter 739. Anyway, after the money was paid, Su Tong and Gu Zibai were not polite and climbed on Qing Ke's back. Qing Ke flapped its wings. Let's go. The moment these words fell, Su Tong and Gu Zibai felt that their eyes were filled with flowers. When they looked back, they saw that the tree had turned into a tiny speck the size of a sesame seed. Boss, where are you going? Qing Ke asked Su Tong and Gu Zibai while flying. This really hits the point. The heaven is so big and full of treasures, but you can't just drag it back with a handful of grass, right? After thinking about it, Su Tong remembered that Taoist Lingxiu had said before that there was a place in the heaven called Yugzu Terrace that could help him break through his shackles, so he said, "Go to Yugzu Terrace." Okay, you two sit tight, let's enter the wind tunnel. As soon as Qing Ke finished speaking, his wings suddenly retracted, and the manic wind instantly formed a layer of wind cover visible to the naked eye in front of the two of them. Qing Ke fell from mid-air like a sharp arrow, and plunged headlong into the stream. In the huge long dragon. It is strange to say that the wind in this wind tunnel seems to be very strong, but after entering, you can only feel the cool breeze and the refreshing breeze. Su Tong looked outside and saw countless suspended mountains, rivers, and islands. Golden buildings and jade bridges flashed past him quickly. Before he could see clearly, the scene changed again and again. Can everyone who enters get help from you, Qing Ke? At this time Su Tong asked a key question. Now that they can get help from Qing Ke, can others do the same? Qing Ke did not hide this, and told Su Tong with certainty, yes, not only us Qing Ke, but also many animals in the heaven will take the initiative to help, but Having said this, Qingke hesitated and turned back to blink at Su Tong. Those smart eyes had already told Su Tong the most standard answer. Give me money. What? What if you don't have money? Then pick out some treasures from your prop book. If you can't bear to part with these treasures, then I'm sorry, just go on your own. The world is so big, it depends on where you go. However, although the heaven is large, it is not open to exploration. The gods of the heavens were invited to Qingcheng Mountain and the mansion was empty, so it doesn't matter if you go in and get something. To put it bluntly, the Taoist big guys are trying to circumvent the rules of heaven and give you benefits. But there are some places that you just can't get close to. For example, in the 22 days where they are now, there are some places that are not allowed to enter, because the gods inside have not received the invitation and are still guarding their positions. It is a bit difficult to get them to let go. Even in some places, if you are unlucky and meet the patrolling gods, they may even call you back. While speaking, the green bird suddenly flapped its wings, forced its way out of the wind duct, and then continued to fall. Suddenly, the scenery in front of it changed, and clouds and mist were seen, giving people an illusory feeling. Gradually, the hazy fog receded, and a few 100-foot giant pillar stands majestically. The pillars are engraved with a golden coiled dragon pattern, just like a living creature ready to move, coiling upwards on the pillars. It seems that it will rush out and roar to the sky at any time. Su Tong and Gu Zibai could only raise their heads and look, but they could not see the end. After passing through these giant pillars, Qingke gradually slowed down. Here we are, below is the Jade Void platform, but the guards here, do you two have any tokens of traveling together? Su Tong stuck his head out and looked down. The so-called Yugzu Terrace turned out to be a palace built on the top of the mountain. The palace is crystal clear, with 3 giant gold-swallowing beasts squatting on the ridge. The pillars are lined with jade unicorns. An ancient tree with golden flowers stands in front of the palace. The flowers have bloomed for thousands of years and will never be removed. A dozen golden armored gods stood in front of the palace door, holding halberds, whips, and swords. They noticed the green bird flying from a distance, and calmly placed their palms on the swords at their waists. Su Tong quickly took out the sheepskin roll given by Taoist Lingxiu and put it in his hand. After the green bird landed on the bronze crane at the door, and without waiting for the golden armored god who came to ask, Su Tong lifted the parchment, and saw a strange light suddenly bursting out from behind the parchment, and a strange the mark appears. It turns out he is a descendant of Zhang Tianxi. I haven't seen him for many years. The last time he came with this little guy was more than 600 years ago. The golden armored god glanced at the mark on it, nodded, and let out a sigh. More than 600 years ago, Su Tong calculated in his mind that it should be the time of the Ming dynasty. However, the Ming dynasty was famous for its belief in Taoism, especially the grandfather of the eldest princess. Emperor Jia wished he could build a Taoist temple in the palace. So it was not unusual to hold several Lushan dipping events at that time. Please come in, you only have time for a cup of tea. Whether you get the opportunity depends on your luck, the golden armored god said. A cup of tea. Su Tong and Gu Zibai were startled. They didn't expect the time to be so short. It only takes about 15 minutes to survive with a cup of tea. This amount of time is not even enough to make a breakthrough, let alone a breakthrough. Seemingly seeing the surprise on their faces, the golden armored god made a simple and honest voice, "That's right, it's time for a cup of tea." As he said that, he pulled out the sword from his waist, pointed it at the door behind him and stabbed it. The image of the huge god's body stabbing with the sword gave people a strong sense of visual shock. Buzz. For a moment, the long sword pierced the door, and the door gradually began to turn into nothingness, finally revealing a door of light. Then he saw the golden armored gods and waved to all the golden armored gods, "Let's go have some tea." Several golden armored gods nodded, then turned into a rainbow light and disappeared. Quick, quick, let's go in quickly. Guzibai suddenly became anxious, urging the green bird to fly in quickly. After all, there was too little time for a cup of tea, and it was almost a race against time. However, Kinke let out a faint laugh and explained, "It's time for a cup of tea, but that cup of tea is as big as a mountain, and it will take at least 2 hours to drink it." As big as a mountain. Guzibai's face was full of shock. It was hard to imagine how these golden-armored warriors were drinking tea while holding teacups as big as mountains. But when Kinke said this, Sutong and Guzibai suddenly felt less stressed. It turns out that these two are queens of heavenly masters. No wonder they dare to come here. Qingke and Jinjia Shen both mistakenly thought that Sutong and Guzibai were disciples of Longhu Mountain, and they also tacitly acquiesced to this. After all, the trees are big enough to enjoy the shade. Longhu Mountain is the ancestral home of Taoism and has countless outstanding people in the past. I am afraid that there may be a few ancestors of Longhu Mountain here in the sky. This is the foundation of the great section. This comparison, and the 3 generations of their 7 sects, instantly dissipate. Kinke didn't know what the two of them were thinking, so he continued, "Every sect has its own inheritance, among which the Longhushan inheritance is the most important." When Sutong heard this, he suddenly thought of Zhang Haisheng, so he asked, "So, does Qingcheng Mountain have a legacy?" "Yes, the Tianchi cave in Qingcheng Mountain doesn't have the most inheritance, but it is extremely rich. It is said that the jade roof of the Qianhuang Emperor has the inheritance left by the Tianchi cave." Hearing King Niao's words, Sutong and Guzibai looked at each other and already knew what was going on. While he was talking, the bluebird had already passed through the gate, and the world in front of the two of them suddenly became brighter. The sound of rumbling water came, and what came into view was a waterfall that looked like a sharp sword splitting the sky. The waterfall fell from the sky and sprinkled little bits of nectar and jade liquid. After it was stained on the bodies of the two of them, they actually felt cool all over their bodies. Seeing this, King Niao hurriedly opened his mouth and secretly drank 2 sips, and said, "This is the Tianquan, which falls from the jade void sky above. Drinkers can relieve the diseases of the soul and strengthen the soul." Sutong and Guzibai knew it was good stuff as soon as they heard it. They immediately walked to the edge of the pool, took out various bottles from the prop book and started filling them. Sutong did not forget to take a look at the entry in the prop book. Shanking Tianquan. Drink a cup of heavenly water to wash away the dust in your heart. Drinkers can recover their soul's injuries, and it also has a purifying effect, purifying themselves of all negative effects. It can be used to make elixirs, brew wine, make tea, cast iron, etc. It has endless mysteries and is suitable for everything. Note, it is said that Tais Hang Lejun often washes elixirs from this spring, and drinking it regularly can prolong life. What a good thing! It can restore the injury of the soul. This alone is amazing enough. Once the soul is injured, it is often extremely difficult to recover. It can range from falling into the realm to losing its soul in severe cases. Ordinary drugs have no effect at all. What's more, this thing also has its own purification effect. Sutong believes that if this item is shown at an exhibition, it will definitely fetch a good price. When it comes to money, Sutong is already excited. After all, he was really short of money. It's a pity that the 2 containers they carry are not enough. Even if they have enough space in the prop book, they are not enough. After thinking for a moment, Sutong's eyes lit up. He wrote a note and threw it into the team warehouse. It means asking Gao Zhou to bring some containers through the team space. Team channels cannot be used across worlds, but team warehouses do not have this limitation. When the note arrived at the warehouse, Sutong was afraid that Gao Zhou, a fool, wouldn't see it, so he changed the permissions of the item to remind Gao Zhou. After a while, Gao Zhou took out the note. Su and Tong didn't waste any time. They took this opportunity to jump directly into the cold lake water and take a bath before talking. Unexpectedly, when they plunged in, they were not as happy as they thought. Instead, their bodies fell rapidly, and were then wrapped in a strong fluorescent light. The fluorescent light shone on the two of them, revealing many fragments of their memories. What is this? Looking at her childhood memories, Guzibai's face became even more ugly. In the picture, a man was holding a stick and hitting the woman's body, beating and scolding her at the same time. The woman was beaten until she was covered in blood, but she could not resist. All of this was seen by Guzibai, who was hiding in the corner. Guzibai didn't dare to look at these scenes, or even think about them, but the more he looked at them, the more frightening memories he had. In contrast, Su Tong was much calmer, and scenes appeared before his eyes. Some were beaten, some were praised, and once he was almost drowned in the sink by a mental patient. Whether these pictures are good or bad, Su Tong is very calm, without any emotional fluctuations, and even has a little expectation in his eyes, hoping to find the pictures he expects from those forgotten memories. Watching the memory in front of him like a film, suddenly a baby's cry sounded. Su Tong's pupils tightened and he turned around to look for the direction of this memory. I saw a floating memory appearing in front of me. It was the memory of a baby. It was dark. If the baby's cry hadn't been heard all the time, I might not have been able to find it. Su Tong swam over quickly and waited expectantly, wanting to see if there was any information about his parents when the baby opened its eyes. Slowly, a dim light shone in the darkness. Su Tong's eyes widened and he waited with anticipation. However, the memory picture suddenly stopped at this moment, as if there was a force that forced this memory. Erase. No, 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 no. Under the interference of this force, this fragment of memory began to twist and tear. Su Tong's expression changed, and he reached out to grab it, but in the end he missed it and only caught a broken corner. I vaguely heard a hoarse voice, "Xiang this child shouldn't exist in the world."